Mr. Snow, you are good to go whenever.
We're
you
good to
are.
go? Okay, thank you, Seth. Everybody's in? Good evening. Welcome to the April 4th Scituate Conservation Meeting at 5:30 p.m. We have a couple quick things to read. Just to remind everyone, this meeting is being held remotely as an alternate means of the public access pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, temporarily amending certain provisions of the open meeting law. You are hereby advised that this meeting and all communications during this meeting may be recorded by the town of Scituate in accordance with its open meeting law. Also, the town of Scituate commitment statement to diversity, equality, and inclusion. The Scituate Conservation Commission is committed to providing an environment of respect during the meetings. We ask that all members to interact in a polite manner, even when there is a disagreement. We value the participation of our community and want all participants, including marginalized or minoritized communities, to feel welcome and respected. We ask that our community members and all who participate to commit to these standards and support and respect the community. Thank you very much. Okay, so first on, do we have any additions or omissions to the agenda?
Not that I can think of, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, maybe I'll give just a brief update of some of our scouts and trails pieces if we have enough time. I know we kind of limited with Brendan and a quorum, so we've got to keep that in mind. So I'd take a vote to accept the meeting agenda.
I make a motion, we accept the meeting agenda.
And do we have a second?
Second, Andy.
Thank you, Andy. All in favor? Penny?
Yes.
Brendan?
Yes.
Frank, yes. Thank you. Okay, the first hearing this evening is what we call an ANRAD, and this is for 443 to 461 Chief Justice Cushing Highway. Bear with me.
We already opened it and immediately continued it at the last hearing.
Thank you.
So we're going to go right to Mark Manganello from LEC, who I'm going
Okay,
to
just great. Just before we start that, I know that there's been interest in this meeting, and I just want to make sure I explain clearly that this hearing this evening is only to delineate, accept a wetlands delineation line. This is nothing to do with any proposed project or whatever early stages. In a format like this, the first thing that happens is that we establish what we would consider to be resource areas and delineation of the wetlands. And that's all we're going to be doing this evening. There's no discussion about any other possibilities or whatever. It's strictly what we call an ANRAD for that. And so the applicant is the town of Scituate, and their consultant for this project is Mark Manganello. So Mark, if you want to explain what you've done so far.
Thank you. Yes, again, I'm Mark Manganello with LEC Environmental, representing the town with this ANRAD application. As has been indicated, this is an application seeking to confirm wetland resource area boundaries on this property. It's located on the west side of Route 3A, just north of Tack Factory Pond. It's undeveloped land at this point. We delineated the resource areas out there last fall into the winter, and the site contains a few isolated vegetated wetlands which have formed in historic test pits or other land disturbance that's occurred out there over the years. And then there's a more traditional bordering vegetated wetland that is associated with the pond, and riverfront area associated with a perennial stream which flows into the pond at this point, where there's sort of a dog leg on the southernmost portion of the property that actually contains a small amount of frontage on the pond. If I don't know if you'd like me to share my screen and I can kind of navigate around and show where stuff is, or,
No, I think we've got it here, Mark. I think we've got a full screen up, so maybe you
okay,
could just explain in relation to either 3A or the abutting properties or the reservoir.
yes.
Okay.
And the other thing that I will add is the commission hired a peer reviewer at the last hearing, as you probably know. I met out there with the peer reviewer. We walked the site, reviewed each of the areas. We actually made a modification to the plan, which added another isolated wetland kind of in the central eastern portion of the property. So there was a revision to the plan. The revised plan was submitted. The peer reviewer reviewed the revised plan and wrote a report saying that he agreed with the wetland delineation as depicted on the revised plan. And that revised plan is the one you're looking at on the screen today. So that's really an overview of the application. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Why don't we let Artie Allen address the commission as well? Thank you, Mark.
Good evening, Arthur Allen from Ecotech Incorporated, peer review consulting wetland scientist for the commission. And I concur with Mark in terms of my report and my agreement with the revised plan. Just want to make one quick correction. I think Mark mentioned one additional isolated wetland. There were actually two additional isolated wetlands, the G and H series. And those are both correctly shown on the plan. And that revised plan is dated March 14th, 2022, the revisions on the plan. So yeah, basically, site, as Mark noted, the site is wooded, undeveloped, with the exception of a fairly large number of what appear to be old test pits and borrow pits. Evidently, the site's been the subject of quite a bit of interest over the years in terms of development and soil testing, and appears that most, if not all, of the isolated wetlands are in these historically excavated areas that were either improperly filled or not filled for whatever reason. So that's the isolated wetlands, and as noted, there's a little bit of bordering vegetated wetland up in that dog leg that heads to Tack Factory Pond up in the southwest corner, as well as they've depicted the 100-year flood zone or bordering land subject to flooding down on the south side of the site. And yeah, other than that, we had the site walk. I provided my report. We had a revised wetland plan. I'll also note that Amy Walkie, the Conservation Commission agent, was present with us on the site walk. So she witnessed everything we did out there. And I mentioned her in my report too. Anything for me, I'd be glad to hang around and answer questions. Thank you.
Yeah, if you don't mind that for a minute, I'd appreciate it. And just for anyone that's looking at this doesn't understand an isolated wetland. So the main resource area is the Tack Factory Pond. But when you look at this plan, there's a few areas, maybe they're more in the southern section, maybe one sort of centered or two, that have a bunch of WF flaggings around them. They sort of make some kind of circle or something. And so those areas are what we consider an isolated wetlands. It's not joined directly to the pond or something. So that's just to explain that. You'll see a few little spots around the property with some wetlands flags, and they're relatively small. As that points out, they are probably depressions from some site work. Maybe it's a little bit larger one down towards the little stone wall section to the south. A couple of the bigger ones that are closer to the pond, but then there's a few other small ones. So just that's how best, I guess, to explain those. Okay, let me start with members. Penny? Or Amy, actually, do you want to address any more of this?
No,
Okay.
no, I mean, usually, actually, I would say that we've got Art here, but Art went right into it, so I don't really have anything to add, but going through the members, I think, first.
Okay. So Penny? Can you hear us? I know Penny was having those technical difficulties. Is she still on, Jen? Well, I'm gonna jump from Penny to Jen.
Okay. Yeah, I think it seems relatively straightforward from a resource areas. Because that's specifically what we're talking about today. So I think I'm good.
Okay. Andy?
No, I appreciate the effort that went into the review. It looks straightforward enough to me. No questions.
Brendan?
No, I'm good with what I'm looking at here, and I have no additional questions on this.
Okay. Do we reach Penny?
Yes, I'm here
Penny?
now.
Yep, Penny, do you want to comment on this?
No, I think everything looks good. We've, years ago, we did a ANRAD here too, Frank.
A
So,
couple of them, I think, yeah.
yeah, well, we definitely did one for a development, a big development. Anyways, no, it looks wonderful to me. Thank you.
Okay. I think wonderful should be described in the sense that everything seems to be consistent with what's on the site.
Yes.
So do we have anybody in the audience that has?
Yeah,
a
I
question?
see David McCormick. I'm gonna unmute his microphone.
Okay, and again, I just want to explain that the questions for this should be directed towards either the delineation or the process of delineation, or some
Hey, Dave.
procedural piece.
Hey, Frank, can you hear me?
I can.
Hey, Frank, how you doing? It's Steve Young, 5 Old Forge Road.
Steve, were you McCormick? We were unmuting Mr.
Yeah,
McCormick.
I'm with Dave, and it's due to the fact that there's
Okay.
30 people texting me saying that they can't get into this, and it says on the website that it's a April 7th meeting.
So there's two meetings. There's
No, I understand. I'm at the Conservation Commission website, and it was changed today to say the 7th. I know about the two meetings, but people can't get into this meeting that want to get in. I have 30 people texting me saying, hey, I can't get in.
Our regular meeting is open to the public, and they should be able to do that unless they're just trying to get in to the 7th meeting. I don't know.
If you go onto the Conservation Commission website.
Yeah, we're looking right now, but I don't think we're seeing the same thing.
Well, I have people texting me saying it says the 7th. I
Well,
went down.
that's
to the
fine.
Conservation-
We're at town hall. I'm at town hall, so I'm here with the staff.
I understand. Wait, I went down there to the staff and I spoke to the staff and I said, hey, why did it get changed? And they said it didn't get changed. And when I went back, it still says the 7th.
I believe that there's a meeting on the 7th that the
I
DPW is
understand.
putting in.
I understand. I understand, but there's people texting me saying that they can't get in.
I think they're just clicking on the wrong meeting. I mean, you
Okay,
obviously got
well,
on it.
you know what?
You obviously got on it, so, right, you went to the site and you got on
No,
this meeting.
I'm not on it because when I go at home, it doesn't allow me in it. I don't understand.
How could that happen, Steve? I mean, if you were able to click on this meeting,
Dave I think there might not be enough room for it. I don't know. I don't know. Everybody's texting me saying that they can't get in.
yeah,
So-
well, I'm looking at our secretary. They're looking at this screen. There's a couple now, more participants that have their hand raised, so I think there might be a little misinformation here, but I think we advertised it correctly. And I think if they go to the correct site, they could access that. Do you have something you want to ask about the meeting? The hearing?
Well, I mean, this is, again, Steve Young, 5 Old Forge Road. I think I know you guys are doing delineations, right? What I'd like to see is the Conservation Commission have a study done around the property and say, hey, why is it valuable to the town not to touch it? There's water that comes off of that land, both groundwater, right, and surface water that comes off that land that replenishes the reservoir. And for years, 25 years since I've been here.
Steve, can I just maybe we divert this a little bit? So this piece of property is not under the care and custody of the Conservation Commission. It was purchased at town meeting. The conservation has property in the town of Scituate under our care and custody. This piece of property is right now been purchased at town meeting to determine how they're going to best use it. Right now, and I don't mean to kick this over to somebody else, but right now this property is in the control of the Board of Selectmen. If the Board of Selectmen want to tell the Conservation Commission to study this piece of property or take a look at it, then we'll certainly do that. But right now, this hearing for this evening, and we are sort of limited in our time tonight because we're short a couple of members, is to do an ANRAD. That's what was advertised, and that's what we're trying to hold a hearing on. So we'd kind of like to narrow the discussion to, if you have a question about the wetlands lines or a procedural question about an ANRAD. And then if there's other things that happen with this property, that would be issues to be raised with the Board of Selectmen. That's my opinion. So do you have a question with regard to the wetlands delineation?
Frank, he is muted, so I would say that his answer, he must be answered, but we do have another hand up.
Sure.
Joseph Ferrari, I'm going to unmute him.
Okay.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
We can.
Hi, thank you. My question is really simple, I think. Is it, I had seen a.
Can you give us your name and address,
I'm
please?
sorry, yes, sorry. I'm Joe Ferrari. I live on Old Ford Road at 34 Old Ford Road in Scituate.
Sure. Thank you, Joe.
My only question is, I had seen a diagram of the lots that was, that showed the potential layout of the structures. I'm just wondering, this is actually a great diagram. Is this available through the county site, through Conservation Commission, or can we get access to this actual diagram?
If you contact the Conservation Commission, we can give you access to that diagram because there's the contours and all. It's public information.
Great. I just wasn't sure where it was located, but I'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
It actually should be available right on our conservation page under open applications.
I'm assuming that, is there anybody else other than, I'm assuming that this is Steve again? And if we get disconnected.
There's nobody else. No,
Can we put him back on?
Sure.
Thank you.
Well, Frank, this is Dave McCormack, 21 Stearns Road.
I did.
Hey, Frank. So my question was, when you guys were reviewing the site plan, was this delineated before? Was there a prior delineation? I know multiple folks tried to develop the site for housing.
Well, I best recall that we looked at a delineation when at one point there was a detention pond proposed for the lower part of the site, and we looked at it. I don't remember exactly when that was, but I know that we've had a delineation before.
And that's where I was going.
Sure.
Was there a different, any noticeable difference in the delineation prior to this study?
Yeah, I'm not sure whether either Mark or Art took a look at that. They're free to weigh in on this, but wetlands delineations are only good for a period of time. Sometimes the process in which wetlands are identified changes a little bit, sometimes by soils, sometimes by vegetation. So the commission would prefer to have a new delineation at that time. I mean, we can go back to an old one. What we might find is that some of these isolated wetlands were not part of that because maybe they hadn't had a chance to form or something like that. So certainly it's out there, but I'm pretty comfortable with the two folks that looked at this, both Mr. Manganello and Art Allen, that this is a pretty good line, and not only the wetlands line itself, but the resource areas that are here. Is there any other pieces of this that we need to know about? Eventually there'll be buffers and things like that, but
Yeah.
we just want to know if there's any other resource areas. And maybe Art, can you just elaborate on that a little bit?
Just real quick, Frank,
Yep.
it's Dave McCormick again.
Sure.
The tough part for me, I can understand some of this, but without somebody sharing the screen and actually showing the areas that are delineated, it's tough to follow along to see where certain conditions you might be indicating, you have to avoid, and just to understand what those areas might be on the property.
So the area to avoid is basically along the edge of Tack Factory Pond. You can see sort of where the Ferrera home is and the property line that runs along there. There's a series of flags. I don't know, Amy, do you or Jen have the ability to run a cursor along those? Yep. So it runs right along, that's the main, why don't you explain it a little bit, if you wouldn't mind?
Sure, Art Allen from Ecotech. That's actually the flood zone that along that the property to the south. So there's a flood zone between this property and the actual Tack Factory Pond. Yeah,
Can you
Tack
just
Factory-
elaborate on those zones as well, Art, just so that people understand what that means?
Yeah, so Tack Factory Pond is way off to the south where the cursor is, and then heading north towards the property, there's the flood zone, which is the 100-year flood zone, also known as bordering land subject to flooding, and that's about at the southerly property boundary. And in that little section up that's right in the middle there, there's actually a strip that goes all the way down to First Herring Brook feeding into Tack Factory Pond. And there's 3 flags associated with a bordering vegetated wetland right in the middle of that narrow strip. And the 200-foot riverfront area, another resource area associated with First Herring Brook, comes up just inside the bordering vegetated wetland. So that's the extent of bordering vegetated wetland and riverfront area on the site. Then the rest of the areas that were delineated are what we call isolated vegetated wetlands. And there's a number of them on the site. There's the, let's see, C, D, E, and F series, all down in that south and southeasterly part of the site. And then we found and added 2 additional series, the G and the H series. The G series is up in the kind of southwest corner towards the little narrow strip on lot 8 there, just above where it says Town of Scituate. And then the H series that was added is down between lots 5 and 6, closer to Chief Justice Cushing Highway. And just up from there is the H series that we added. And those, all of those areas, the C, D, E, F, G, and H, again, they're isolated vegetated wetlands. They're only regulated under the Scituate wetland bylaw. So in this case, because the town has a bylaw that has a home rule authority over wetlands, that gives them more control, and the town can regulate these isolated vegetated wetlands, which are not otherwise regulated under the state Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act. So that's
Mr.
it.
Okay,
Quick
thank you.
summary.
Mr. McCormick, if you pull that up, if you can, when you get a chance to look at the plan, you can go to like each one of those wetlands areas and you'll see the letter in it along with the numbering, and it sort of shows that circle, and then there's like little tufts of grass or marsh within those areas to help identify that. But to Mr. Allen's point, that the isolated wetlands is part of our bylaws. So in addition to what the state requires, we have a wetlands bylaw that lets us identify these isolated wetlands, and they have to be dealt with in accordance with the bylaw. I don't know if that helps or not.
Yeah, I think it helps. I follow you at some level. It's tough without the flagging to see exactly where the areas are that Art was identifying, but I pretty much follow along.
Yeah, I mean, the good news is that they've really looked this property over, I feel, pretty thoroughly. It's not just going down to the bottom and looking along the Butler property or something like that. They're looking through the whole site to make sure that we identify these isolated wetlands as well.
Right. Just real, and I know
Sure,
you
go
have a
ahead.
certain
No.
agenda, right? But if I was a builder and I was looking to do this, so you're saying the bylaw protects some of these wetlands where a builder couldn't go in without having to change that bylaw to construct on those certain areas. Is that accurate?
No, so, and I'm kind of, I don't want to jump ahead of this too much, but say in the case of a 40B project, they negate town bylaws in a lot of instances. So isolated wetlands don't have to be observed with that type of project. Sometimes, but in the case of something that's not like that, then the isolated wetlands have to be addressed and dealt with, and they can be either have a buffer and left alone, or might be that they take and reconstruct another wetland in another location in a larger size or some other benefit. So a builder could petition the town to do that. Or they could argue that some of these aren't truly a real wetland.
Right. They get
would just
somebody to come
create-
in and delineate differently. I got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. You have somebody else?
We do. We have Michael Gibson. I'm gonna unmute his microphone.
Okay,
Hi, can you hear me?
we can. Could you
Hi,
just give us
so-
your name and address, please?
Yep, I'm Michael Gibson. I'm at 142 Old Forge Road. So I understand that this study was done in the fall and the winter, right? And I mean, that's about the driest part of the year possible. So, I can tell you, I'm right down in that corner lot, Stearns and Old Forge, and I abut both this land and then also Tack Factory Pond and First Herring Brook. It's much wetter, I guess I would say, out there in my backyard now. So was that really the appropriate time to do this study? Because I would think that there'd be larger areas that would need to be looked at in, the spring when we're dealing with runoff, or even the summer, in terms of the size of areas.
I'm gonna let Mark first explain that, and then I, from what that they can give you a better perspective on just how that works.
Sure. It's true that the area can be drier, but the wetland delineation is not dependent on actually visually observing water. So we look at primarily two factors initially, and that's soils and vegetation. On the vegetation, we can identify for the most part throughout the winter. The soils are definitely observable throughout the winter. And we're able to look at soil characteristics which indicate long-term hydrology in the area. So we're looking for evidence in the soil profile that the groundwater table is within 12 inches of the surface for at least 2 weeks during the growing season. And the soils actually reflect that with essentially with colors in the soil. Art is a certified soil scientist and can speak more articulately than I can about that. But you know, delineating wetlands in the drier part of the year is not an issue. And actually, when we were out there field reviewing it together, there was quite a bit of water out there, surface water that we saw within the wetlands that were delineated, and the two that we added, we actually stumbled upon because there was surface water there that wasn't there when I was there. So I think our field review, our arts field review occurred at a time when there was quite a bit of water out there.
Yeah,
Maybe you can explain
concur.
the soils, please.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I can concur. I mean, we were, when we did our review, when I did my review, accompanied by Mark and Amy, that was March 9th. So we were getting into a wetter part of the year. I mean, we did see surface water and ponding water in various places across the site. But again, that's, you know, not the primary criteria. And actually it was mentioned, could we do it in the spring or summer? Summer being actually probably the driest part of the year, but it's still it's a 12-month of the year, process that we follow. And anytime when the soil is not frozen and there's not snow cover on the site, we can do a thorough, analysis of the vegetation and the soil as it indicates the groundwater hydrology. And Mark did a very good job explaining the soil criteria actually, but those are the things we look at, and we can look at that, anytime when the site is not frozen or snow covered. Although in this case, we saw it, in the late winter, just before spring. And again, there was quite a bit of surface water on the site that we factored into our analysis. Thank you.
Does that help?
I'd say it does. It clears it up, and I see no more hands raised.
Oh, I think we got one.
Okay, hold on.
Yep.
Hi, yes, Michael Gibson again. That does
Hi,
help. I appreciate that explanation. Thank you. Unrelated, but a bit of a follow-up now. So we're only talking about wetlands with this application, correct? Are any other resource areas taken into consideration? Perhaps used by wildlife or anything like that? Or is this purely a wetland focused review?
So right now, well, Mark, why don't you first explain what you've done?
Yeah, the terminology can be a little misleading. The wetland resource area boundaries is what we're seeking approval of. So that includes isolated vegetated wetlands, bordering vegetated wetlands, which are two types of, I guess, what you would think of as sort of traditional, quote, wetlands. But we're also seeking confirmation that the boundary of the floodplain is accurate. That's established by FEMA, so that's really not in question, but we're showing it on the plan to confirm its location based on elevation. And then the riverfront area associated with the perennial stream that flows into Tack Factory Pond. Riverfront area is another, quote, wetland resource area. Both bordering land subject to flooding and riverfront area can occur, and in this case do occur, in areas that aren't wetlands, like vegetated wetlands, but they are protected vegetated. They're protected wetland resource areas under both the local wetlands protection bylaw and the state wetlands protection act. I hope that helps. There's no wildlife survey component to confirming wetland resource area boundaries in an ANRAD process.
Do you look for like national heritage when you look at something like that, Mark? Do you guys look at that as well, or at?
I mean, we review the maps, but the ANRAD process does not confirm the presence or absence of rare species habitat as mapped by natural heritage, but this site does not contain it.
Okay. All right. Does that make, are you good with that?
Yeah, I concur, and I also checked the maps as part of my review, and I can confirm that there's no mapped rare species habitat, no map certified or potential vernal pools on the site. And the you know, going forward, if and when a project is put forward, that's the time when the commission can consider any thresholds or triggers for wildlife habitat studies that may come up as part of a project, you know, that may or may not hit thresholds requiring that wildlife habitat studies be done, but that would be related more to the actual development, which is not, you know, up for discussion tonight. Thank you.
Well, we don't even know, it's not on a plan, so we don't have anything to respond to that. But I can tell you that in the case of like other sites, we look to this, what we call national heritage, because they have maps available that say to us, these are the areas that you want to be considering possibly a turtle issue or some other piece, and that would be in that map. Now, it doesn't mean to say that if there isn't something on there, that we could deal with that separately, but that was the whole purpose in having Art and Mark and Amy walk the site to observe that, and both Mark and Art are pretty seasoned people when it comes to looking for that sort of thing.
Thank you. That's all very helpful. That answers all the questions I had.
Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot.
Frank, I'm gonna unmute Pat, who's has her hand up, and stay tuned.
Sure. Good evening.
Hi, Patricia Butler, 439 Chief Justice Cushing Highway.
Hey,
I just
Pat.
have one question. It may be a stupid question, but I just need to know. I know that as you go up the highway, you can actually see the water there in the land. But right down by my stone wall, quite often, there's water there all the time, most of the time. And so I've always believed that it was the test pits, and when they fill up, the water comes down. Is there any way they can fill up? Can you fill in a test pit or not? Can you do?
So, well, obviously they get filled in after they dig the hole, and then sometimes what happens is those pits settle. And then if there's a depression and it's large enough, then that could potentially become an isolated wetland.
Okay.
So they couldn't just go in and fill. Now that we have this all mapped out, we know where these isolated wetlands are, and they should not be altered and until a project comes along. And then if for some reason they want to do something with some of these, typically they would have to replicate those in some fashion, but that's not what's on the table right now. We want to know where all these pieces are. And so, Pat, when you mentioned that you see water or whatever down by your stone wall, we can see the stone wall line at your house, and then there's almost like a second wall that's in a little bit, and I see a couple of isolated wetlands around those. So I don't know if those are what you're referring to.
Okay, probably, because I can just see him standing right next to my stone wall.
Okay.
Okay.
And then what they also look to see is if any of these have the potential to be a vernal pool, which would get other protection, but both Art and Mark don't see that in their review.
Okay.
And there's no vernal pools, certified vernal pools on this piece of property either.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else?
I see no other hands, Frank.
Okay.
Want to take a motion?
I think if everybody comfortable with the answers?
I'm good.
Okay, all right. So I'd like to take a motion.
I make a motion that we accept the INRAD.
It's Penny. Do I have a second?
Second from Jen.
Thanks, Jen. So all in favor, Andy,
Yes.
Brendan,
Yes.
and Frank, yes. Great. Thank you very much. Thanks, Art. Thank you, Mark.
Right now.
Have a good night. Okay, 121 Jericho Road. So the applicant's requesting a continuance
Yeah,
to 4/19.
to April 19th. You want me
Yep.
to make a motion?
That would be awesome.
I make a motion that we continue 121 Jericho Road till April 19th.
Second.
And that was Andy for second. So all in favor, Jen?
Yep.
Brendan?
Yes.
Thank you. And Frank, yes. Great. 49 Rebecca Road. This is Ross Engineering. And this is a continuance.
I'm going to unmute Paul Marabito.
We have to.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, thank you. Frank, at the last meeting, commission was going to arrange for a site visit to go out and view the site, and I never heard back from anyone, so I don't know if the members looked at it individually or
I did.
if someone else looked at it, but
I did.
Okay. Yeah, sorry about that, Paul. I don't know. I know that I took a look. I think a couple other folks did as well.
all right.
Yes.
So do you want to give us any additional information, or we can go to members for some more discussion?
No, nothing's really changed. They're proposing the detached accessory outbuilding that would be used by the applicant's residence, which is on the other side of Rebecca Road at 49. This is a vacant lot. It is being used for storage of boats and some trailers, as shown in the photographs that I submitted with the notice of intent. The land slopes to the Phragmites to the rear of the abutting property, which is, they're quite substantial in nature. This lot itself is all lawn area. There is an existing garage to the south of it. And to the north, there's a vacant lot, which there's some garden area in there and some lawn. Then after that, there's a series of homes and other garages on the west side of Rebecca Road, which I'm sure you're all familiar with.
Mhm.
In this part of the town. And the applicant has approached the building department, and this is a structure that would be allowed as a matter of right. So assuming the commission were to approve it, the structure you see is pretty much the only one that he could put there for a number of reasons. It's mainly the setbacks from the side, rear, and front lot lines. The lot's only 47 feet wide, and it's about 62 feet in depth. The wetland line that was flagged by Brad Holmes is shown off-site to the rear of the property. That's the lawn area, but in his report, he was able to determine the soils and the color of the wetland soil and the groundwater elevation to determine that that would be the edge of the wetland if the lawn area were not being mowed and allowed to grow back. You can also see the edge of the existing Phragmites to the east of that line, which we located by field survey. Other than that, the area off-site is pretty much all lawn. It's a maintained lawn by the various property owners as well as the locus itself. There's no changes in grade. This will be a slab on grade. And he'd access it from Rebecca Road as shown on the plan. So with that, I'll answer any more questions the commission may have.
Thank you, Paul. Amy, do you want to speak to this anymore? before I flip over to members?
Well, I mean, I gave a pretty thorough breakdown last time. I think it does come down to a couple of things. I mean, one, clearly, you know, this lot is changed and over time with, you know, filling and lawn establishment, whatever, but so the building would be within the 50-foot commission do not disturb area. So that is something that we want to remind you of. And also, if a building were to go here, accessory structure, it would need to meet building code for coastal resource areas, which I do not believe is a slab on grade. I believe that is some type of elevation. But also, I would say that mitigation could be considered, and also reiterate just that commission should be also, and residents and proponents of projects should be cognizant of the climate resiliency challenges that we have in Cedar Point and this area of Scituate, and that future trends do definitely show this point to be underwater under a regular high tide cycle. So it is a consideration as well. That's all I have.
Thanks, Amy. Well, let's go to our members. Jen?
I think if I was to rank my concern, my biggest would be that, you know, we've tried to really stick to the 50-foot buffer, and this is not respecting that boundary. So I'd like to understand why we should approve it based on that.
Okay. Andy?
Yeah, I guess I feel similarly. I can't think of any projects like this in the 50 that we allowed like this. I mean, I appreciate Amy bringing up the fact that if it were to be done, it may need to be raised, because I think we're seeing a lot of, we're getting either enforcement issues in situations like this where we're putting buildings close together at grade, and then, you know, having issues with water and the results of that, and then having to make even more alterations to accommodate it. So I don't love doing it in the 50. Would be disinclined.
Okay, thank you. Brendan?
Yeah, I echo the same sentiment. This is in the 50, and I know that it's been disturbed, but we're putting a structure here. I think that's a different. I want to know why we should be doing this.
Okay. Penny?
Yeah, I'm with everybody. It's not just a part of the structure in the 50, the whole structure's in the 50 on a slab to make it even worse. Yes, there is lawn out there and they probably mow it all the time, but that area of lawn can take in water. A slab cannot take in water. And I know there's other garages over there. I have no idea how long they've been there, probably since the 60s, 70s, I don't know. But to allow a new structure, everything in the 50 just goes completely against. I mean, no, I do not feel it's a good idea. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have anybody in the audience to speak to this?
I do not see any hands raised, Frank.
Okay. Well, I took a ride by there as well and noted, as you did right now, there's boats parked there. And then there's, it's all grass. It's pretty much an altered area. Actually, to the over a little bit further, the lawn stretches out even more. I don't think it's on your client's property, but
Yeah.
next to that, there's even lawn that excuse me one second. Sorry about that.
Frank, if I can, I'd like to make a few comments for the record prior to ending this. As far as the resource area, the locus is in AE zone. That's land subject to coastal storm flowage. A structure such as this is allowed to be on a slab. This is not a dwelling. Many homes are in flood zones where the dwellings are elevated on piles, poster columns, and the garages are lower in elevation. They're actually in the flood zone and they're on slabs, which is allowed by FEMA. This would be a similar structure. The other thing I'd point out is, I think as you all know, this is this whole lot is already disturbed. It's being used. It has been used. The structures that are on this side of the road go back to the early 1900s. That's been well documented in town records. The other thing is, there are no performance standards in land subject to coastal storm flowage. But the thing I'd point out here is that the runoff from this roof is considered to be clean water. It isn't like it's going to be polluting any resource area. If there were a performance standard, what you'd be looking at is whether or not the proposed work is going to harm the resource area. And the answer is clearly no, it wouldn't be in this case, because the only runoff is coming from the roof and everything else around the building would stay in the exact condition it is now, that being a lawn area. I don't see any way there could be an argument made that putting this structure here would have an adverse impact on the resource area. The building does have to be constructed to FEMA compliant standards in order to get the building permit. I think, as you know, the FEMA standards are also in a part of the Massachusetts State Building Code today. So all those building issues would have to be addressed prior to getting a building permit. So I think with that, I'll end and answer any other questions you may have.
I've got a few, Paul. When I look at this plan, it looks like between the proposed garage and Rebecca Road shows lawn. So is the applicant not putting any sort of a drive or anything up to the?
Yeah, we just above the road, we show a proposed gravel drive coming into the garage, which should be pervious.
I guess it's confusing because I'm seeing the word lawn.
We see lawn above it. There's two lines going up to the garage from the edge of the pavement.
Yeah.
That's a proposed gravel drive. It's the arrow to each side of it. So from the edge of the pavement to the garage, there'd be a gravel driveway.
Yeah, but right in front of the proposed garage is the word lawn.
Yeah, that's an existing condition.
Okay. All right. So along with the driveway, you're also proposing a gravel, along with the garage, you're proposing a gravel driveway to the garage, correct?
Pervious, which would absorb water.
I understand. Just want to make sure it's clear. So I don't disagree with the statements that you have made. You know, sometimes when people propose these sort of things, right now, I think I counted over there, maybe 3 boats or 2 boats in a car or something. I don't remember when I drove by, but there were several, at least boats, and some other things on this lawn. If this were constructed, would those boats or whatever be in the garage now, or are they still going to be parking them on the lawn adjacent to the garage?
They wouldn't be on the lawn. There wouldn't be room for them because the setbacks are 8 feet there.
Okay.
You know,
Or in the back of it or anything like that. I guess my point might be for commission members to consider, and it's only a consideration, is if this structure were allowed to be built, and let's say, I know in Hummerock, we allowed for a garage, the original plan, I forget if it was you or who applied, but we had an application for a project, and it showed, I guess there was already an existing garage there, so technically they were putting something where there had been a structure before. And the applicant agreed to elevate it. They put it on piers, fairly close to the ground, but it allowed for water to flow underneath it, because that's been a problem. The ramp or whatever was, I believe it was wood
Yeah.
or something, so water could flow through there and under the structure. So that was something that the commission considered. The other thing that was brought up at the last meeting, and I don't think you addressed it or added anything to it, was, there's no mitigation proposed for any of this. Typically, when you go into an area and you're in the 50 and whatnot, you'd come up with something and say, listen, here's a compelling reason to let us do something that would normally not be allowed. But I'm not seeing any mitigation proposed at all. So to just,
As far as mitigation, one of the things we could probably propose, I talked to my clients, but within that 8-foot setback is to put some shrubs in there so nobody could bring vehicles to the rear of the property. Not that they would. That's so lower in elevation. There's no reason to store anything back there. Again, the access would be from the street. It is a fairly small lot. The property to each side of it is already being used, one by a garage and the other one, I believe the owner has a lawn area and some seasonal gardens for vegetables, as far as I could tell. But again, I understand what the commission's talking about, the 50-foot buffer and no work in it, but that historically has usually been where there's no disturbance in a 50-foot buffer. This has a long history of being disturbed land and also being used well within the 50-foot buffer as far back as I can remember. The other thing I'd point out is I believe the 1907 plan, it's in record at the registry, showed an old structure on this property. It's been gone for probably several decades, not that that matters, but there was a structure on there going way back when the land was first surveyed, where they laid out the lots along Rebecca Road.
well, have you ever, or have you had a discussion with the building department about the possibility of putting the garage closer to the street, like get at least part of it out of the 50-foot buffer? I know that doesn't do much in terms of a ramp or access. I mean, right now but from the edge of the pavement, it looks to me like there's at least, I don't know, 30 feet or something like that, maybe a little better.
The front yard setbacks in this district are 30 feet from the property line of the street. It isn't measured from the edge of the pavement. It's from the property line of the.
I understand how that works. I guess my point is that I'm thinking about a house on Hadley Road that got conditioned. The applicant went to the ZBA because they had wetlands in the back and they had no way to build that house without being partially in the wetlands. And so they went to the ZBA first and requested relief because otherwise their project couldn't be built. So I'm just throwing that out there. Would the ZBA allow something like that to, so that, go ahead.
The 30-foot setback, we use the average setback, which was 18.8 feet, which is allowed in the zoning bylaw.
I see that.
Yeah. So,
But given that the town has a 50-foot no build, would the zoning board of appeals give you additional relief to get at least part of the structure out of the 50-foot buffer? And then what that possibly given free flow underneath the garage, blocking off the sides with some shrubs, so it's only lawn or grass, and then possibly plantings or something at the rear of the property to give some additional mitigation. I mean, it is a long way to go to get some of that, but those are the kind of things that I would be thinking about if this were to be conditioned. We do have another hand up though, D. Sullivan, if this is the owner.
I'm going to unmute D. Sullivan.
Thank you. Good evening. Do we have D. Sullivan on?
I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
We can. If you could
Okay.
just give us your name and address for the record, please.
Dan Sullivan, 49 Rebecca Road. I just wanted to address the question that the chairman had concerning the storage on the site. Right now, there's 2 boats. One would be in the garage, the other's my son's who's relocating, but the other 2 trailers are basically temporary storage right now. They're landscaping trailers. We moved there only in September and did the, I guess they call it right sizing thing, went from a larger house in Scituate Trail to this. So that's why we're having, we're pushing for some storage space. So right now, that's what those 2 trailers are full of, everything you can imagine that's in your garage or your basement, from lawn furniture and that kind of thing. But I just wanted to, clarify that. The other quick comment is, I know there's some comments about nothing new has been built out there. There has been. There's a couple of garages. I think one is 5 or 6 years old. I assume that it was grandfathered from an older structure, but two spots down. There's only one other spot that is not built on right now, other than my spot. So,
Yes. Yep.
So-
I noted that when I was out there, so that there isn't really much that hasn't been done there.
Right. Doesn't make it right, but it's kind of the situation as it stands right now. But I just wanted to clarify what the other the trailers that are out there for. We're just kind of still working our way through moving into the house and getting settled in.
Okay. Well, it wasn't to say that they shouldn't be there. I'm just noting them, and
Right.
if there was, and some things can be there by right, and
Right. I would rather not. I don't think it's attractive for the neighborhood. I'd rather have what I would, call a boathouse style, as some of them are there, to kind of match the house on the other side. When we, not the responsibility of the board, when we bought the house, it was sold to us with stated that it was a buildable lot at the time. So that's kind of, that's why we have everything there at this point, hoping we were going to get to that point to be able to put something in.
Sure.
But if anyone has any other questions, be happy to answer.
Okay. Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
So, Paul, I don't know. When you got the feedback from the commission, I don't know if you think it's worth trying to come up with something that could certainly put this to the vote, or if you think you want to try to.
Frank, what I'd like to do is put it off for 2 weeks and I'll talk to my client, come up with some ideas that may.
And I'm not saying that the ideas that I have are acceptable to everyone. I'm just saying personally, from looking at this, if your client made an effort to do some of those things, and I'd include talking it over with the zoning officer and see if that isn't feasible. I can appreciate the fact that they don't have.
That's one of the things that I'd like to do. A couple other things I'd like to pursue, and we can get back to you with a proposal.
Okay, do you think that that's enough time to do what you're?
Frank, we don't have room on that 19th meeting at this point, so I would go to the May 2nd meeting.
Okay. All right, can I get a motion for that?
I make a motion, we continue 49 Rebecca Road to May 2nd.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that, Brendan.
Thanks, Brendan. All in favor, Jen,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Frank, yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
3 Seagate Circle.
Oh.
All right, you're back already, Paul.
That's already. I didn't get very far, did I?
We need to open this one, though.
Oh, that's right, too. On On April, thanks, Amy. On April 4th, 2022, 5:30 PM, the Town Hall, Situate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Mass General Laws and Section 30700, Town of Situate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of Christopher Goodman for work related to elevating and building in addition to a single-family dwelling at location 3 Seagate Circle, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information to access the virtual meeting will be available on the agenda posted on the town website.
Thank you, Frank. I believe with me also is the applicant's attorney, Bill Weinberger. Jen, are you able to share the plan?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. The applicant owns the existing dwelling at 3 Seagate Circle. That's on the corner of Surfside and Seagate Circle. If you're coming down Surfside Road, it'll be the very last house on the right. If you look at the drawing, you can see how the edge of pavement on Surfside Road actually goes into the lot, a small amount. It's kind of an odd layout, but it is what it is. The applicant purchased a home. There was a small addition on the back of it. They approached the building department 2 or 3 years ago to renovate it. And in the course of renovation, it was determined that the structure was not sound and they couldn't do the renovation. So the back portion was raised, and in its place, they put a second story on top of the existing house, which was outside the floodplain. This locus is on a barrier beach. It's also an AE zone. It's zone AE elevation 14. And the purpose of this application is to construct a proposed addition to the rear of the house, and also add an open deck around the addition with a set of stairs coming down on the east side along the Surfside Road portion of the lot. They're also going to have a garage under the house once it's elevated on concrete piers. Again, this is a barrier beach. So, and where the work is more than 50% of the value of the structure, they have to elevate it accordingly, and that will be done. And I submitted a copy of the structural plans as well, showing that the existing house and the addition, as well as the decks, would be elevated on the concrete piers accordingly. Long and short of it is, with all this work being proposed, there's a reduction in the impervious area on the entire site of approximately 14%, as we show in note number 10. There's a small amount of pavement that would be constructed from the edge of the pavement and Surfside Road into the garage, which is under the existing dwelling. The disturbed area that is presently lawn area, and once the construction is completed, that lawn would be put back in place along with some landscaping around the house. There's no change in elevations proposed. We show a silt sock around the perimeter of the proposed work. And that's the scope of the work. So with that, I'll end and answer any questions the members may have.
Thank you, Paul. Jen?
Oh, do you want to go to Amy first?
Oh, yeah, thank you. Amy?
Okay. So I mean, I guess I'll start with accuracy of resource areas. So like, I agree that it appears to be in FEMA land subject to coastal storm flowage for AE 15, barrier beach, and also I would note that coastal dune would apply. Let's see, and also buffered to the Musquashkett Pond, which is added to this plan. So and a few other things. We did take a look for previous filings on this property. And the only solid folder I came up with was from 92. So it was related to storm damage from the No Name storm, 91, and cleanup associated with that, with the moving of the berm. As we know, that berm does move, although now that it's been rebuilt, it's pretty sturdy, but it is subject to coastal storm damage, and the intent of having a cobble berm is so that it can move, shift, and migrate as the storms go through and absorb wave energy and storm damage. A few other comments would be, I kind of have a lot here, folks. So would be that I don't know, the work, I guess, to remove the back or the part that they want to replace for the addition. I didn't find any permits associated with that work, which appears that it was done in 2019, like Paul said. Also noting the existing shed on the edge of the pond. And we're also referencing past plans showing maybe at least a respectful buffer to the pond. And I did not find permits for that shed. So, I mean, I guess one thing we could look at would be trying to improve upon that buffer. Clearly, it would be an improvement to elevate this structure onto open pilings without footings. And my read on that is that it should be driven wooden piles, not concrete piers. And the properties along Surfside that we know, and also on Seagate, there's definitely marsh below, the area that is where the houses are. So geotech borings would definitely confirm the sediment characteristics. I think that's a good start.
Frank, can I quickly respond to some of Amy's comments before you go to other comments from the members?
Sure.
Thanks. I spoke, in speaking with the owner, he was aware of some of the issues of the other homes further down on Seagate Circle that they ran into when they were putting concrete piers in, where they ran into peat. He did have some borings done on the property, and they confirmed it was all gravel. They did not hit peat. That's the reason they're going with the concrete piers, which they can use on a barrier beach, and that's what they're proposing. It doesn't have to be wooden. I verified that with the DEP 2 or 3 years ago, relative to a new home being built in Humrock on concrete piers. And they told me at that time that they could use either or. So based upon the soils that were encountered, the structural engineer for this project has designed the concrete piers under the existing home as well as the addition. The other thing I'll point out is that to the rear of the lot, there's an existing concrete retaining wall. There's an edge of the pond location that was also shown on the land court plan that goes back several years. There's a previous garage at the rear of the old addition on the house, which has been removed. That is not going to be replaced. The garage now will be up under the existing dwelling, which is up on the street. The existing shed that you see down by the retaining wall is going to remain in place. The proposed addition is further away from the edge of the pond than the existing structure was by about 5 to 6 feet. There's also, I mean, that's the, I'm sorry, back up. It's quite a bit more than that because there's an open deck that's about 5 to 6 feet further inland than the outline of the previous covered addition. The proposed addition is much smaller. It's about 26 feet deep by 28 plus another 12 feet. The dimensions are shown on the plan. The proposed work they're doing now is further away from the pond than the original building would have been had they not had to raise it. When they did the renovation work, they did have all the necessary permits from the zoning enforcement officer, which is the building department. And they were aware of the reasoning for having to remove that addition off the back of the house. Again, the proposed structure and deck is further away from the edge of the pond than the existing structures were. We have a 14% reduction in the impervious area, which is an improvement. And the house will be elevated on concrete piers as it's on the state map of Barrier Beach. This isn't classified as a dune. It's clearly mapped as a barrier beach, as well as the rest of the homes on Seagate Circle. So again, I'll stop there and answer any questions the members may have.
Okay, thank you, Paul. So, Jen.
Thanks. One thing I was wondering, and there was just a lot of talking, so it might have been said and I missed it, is when was the last time these resource areas were flagged?
We did a survey out there in 2018, and then we followed up with some work about 6 to 8 months ago, just to verify that there are no other changes in the property. And
But they're not on this map?
we didn't find any wetlands. The edge of the pond was straightforward. It follows the edge of the wall. We also located the edge of the salt marsh, which was very obvious.
Okay.
From the edge of the salt marsh at high tide, you can see the edge of the pond. And
yeah,
there's also a retaining wall out by the marsh itself, but the edge of the pond was from the land court plan. And that's where the buffer zones were measured from the edge of the retaining wall, which is really the edge of the salt marsh at this point in time.
You said the buffer zones are measured from the edge of the retaining wall?
Yes, so we showed that.
I don't feel like I'm seeing that.
Oh, it's there.
To the south of the.
Do you see the arrow?
The concrete retaining wall.
Yeah, but
That's the wall.
50-foot and 100-foot buffer.
I thought you were saying the edge of the pond.
And then the salt marsh is where we saw it in the field, and we located that by field survey. But the 1,500-foot buffer zone, Jen, is measured from that wall. That's about 2 or 3 feet above the marsh.
Yeah, it's just complex. I feel like it'd be good to get somebody else's perspective on that, but it's hard to. I would definitely, either way, I would definitely be interested in that existing shed that is proposed to stay. But I feel like I don't have a firm grasp on the resource areas for now. Frank, I'm good.
That's all lawn back in there. That edge of pond we show is what was on the old land court plan. The pond doesn't come back to there now. That's been filled in over time.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the I'm pretty familiar with that area.
Okay.
Which is why this map was confusing to me.
All right. Andy?
Yeah, that's where my questions came from too. So you're saying that you've put the old land court line there, but that is no longer reflective of the site.
That's correct.
And when was that land court line established?
That land plan, I can check my file, but it's fairly old.
And do we know what filled it in? Did someone fill it in, or was it natural? What happened to push the pond so far back?
This property is part of an old land court survey. And back when that survey was done, that's where they located the edge of the pond on the date of their survey. But now what you have is a concrete wall that's out much closer to the salt marsh than the edge of the pond was. Somebody built that years ago, and they filled the land in to get a bigger yard area.
Got it. Okay, so it's been filled. Got it. Okay, yeah, that's my questions for now.
Thanks, Andy. Brendan?
Yeah, I'm confused by the edge of the pond thing too.
Brendan,
Can I-
the
can-
pond back in the land court plan was used as the end of their property line.
Okay, all right.
If you look at
So-
Surfside Road, you can see a dimension of 49.68 feet. It went from an angle point up on Surfside Road, and it went to the edge of the pond that they located way back when. On the other
Okay.
side, over by the existing shed, you can see we stopped the property line at the edge of the pond that was shown on the land court plan. That had a bearing and a dimension, and their property line only went to the edge of the pond as they located it several decades ago.
Okay, and is that concrete retaining wall here?
Yes.
Yeah, it's the triple line.
Okay,
It's pretty old.
okay, yeah, I guess I'll have no further questions right now.
Okay, Penny, did you comment yet?
No, I didn't. But one thing is, I think we have to remember that every major storm until they rebuilt the berm, cobble was being washed into the pond. So I think the contours of the pond over there have changed dramatically. Okay, and if we get a huge northeaster, some of that cobble will start to come down again, and we cannot remove it. We have to remember that. So after saying that, my biggest concern here is that existing shed. It really needs to be moved, Paul. The rest of it, the building, the addition, putting everything up on piles, or that's all good. I don't have a problem with that, but I do not like the shed way back there.
Why do you need to move it? It's been there for a long time.
Because I'd like it moved. How's that? It would just be nice to move it. It might have been there for a long time, but that's not a good place for it. It's not a good place. You're in the buffer, the 50-foot buffer, and I want everything out if it can be. You know, other than that, I really don't have any major problems with the plan itself. It is a funny little lot there.
Looks
Okay.
like Brendan has his hand up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did want to, I forgot to mention to echo the sentiment of the shed. But what's a long time?
It's probably been there for decades, as far as I could tell.
Yeah, but since the 70s, it shouldn't have been there. Well, that's like 5 decades.
Okay.
Not a big deal, move it.
Do we have any other commission members? Looks like Mr. Goodman would like to speak to this.
Let me unmute Mr. Goodman.
This is Chris Goodman, owner of the property at 3 Seagate. I'm actually raising my hand on behalf of Bill Hornberger. He's having a hard time raising his hand and he wanted you to see if you could unmute him.
Thank you. Can we find Bill?
Yeah, I see him. I've identified him and I'm asking him to unmute. So, oh, he should be on.
Hello.
Good evening, Bill.
Thank you. Yeah, but just a couple things that I'd note. As far as the existing shed, because I was just asking Chris, with the limit being in the floodplain, limits of storage, that's an important attribute for him and his young family. One of the questions, Joe, just to put it in this perspective, and I heard this, is Chris is doing exactly what the beck and call has been in the town of Scituate to make his house flood compliant, to lift it higher than this,
Yeah.
to move structures and things further away from the resource areas. And, you know, I don't know how many times, you know, the prior application, which is just listening to, people don't want to raise things. And, you know, he's gone through great efforts to try to make this a very environmental friendly, you know, house for a long time for his family. And I just don't want to, and I know the commission members know that. I just don't want to lose perspective of this, because I think, and tell me, so we have an existing concrete retaining wall, correct, Paul? Or
Yeah.
maybe Paul's muted out.
Yes.
So the fact that there's and does the concrete retaining wall, is it in front of the shed, the existing shed?
Yes.
Right. So whether the shed's there or not, doesn't the existing concrete retaining wall take away whatever the normal attributes of a buffer would be?
No.
Why?
Well, if you want, we can ask them to take out the concrete retaining wall, Bill. Come on.
No,
I mean, I'm just
Penny.
asking it to be moved over in the other corner. You know, where you have your garage, move it over in that area there where that garage is coming out. That's all. And it can still have the grass out back there. But it's just, you know, the thing is, wonder if in the shed he stores his lawnmower. Okay, it leaks oil. I'm just looking at things like that so close to the resource area. That's all. It's really, I don't think it's a big thing that would be asking him to do. I didn't say he can't have a shed. I think he should have a shed, but move it over where that existing garage is, the previous existing garage over there. And then if anything leaks or whatever you're storing in there, paint or whatever, it's not going to get into the pond. It's not. I mean, I think the rest of the project looks good to me, really good. And I'm glad to see the whole house come up.
Thank you, Penny. Is there anybody else that wants to add to this? Do we have anybody else with their hands up or anything?
Ding dong, Frank.
Okay, so just to get back to explain a little bit, because it was a little confusing. When you see that thing that says edge of pond, then after that is an LC plan. So that's the land court plan was what Paul was referring to. And then because as Penny pointed out, having years and years of experience in the area, she realizes that, you know, all that overwash has changed the shape of the edge of that pond. And now that there's a concrete, the edge of the pond is actually quite a bit further out. And then there's that concrete retaining wall. So it's a little hard to fathom without walking out there and looking at it. But that shed is actually a fair distance from the edge of the pond. I know it does sit in the 50 and whatnot, but it's quite a ways away from there. The other thing, I think if anybody rode down the end of the street, it's pretty obvious that Seagate Circle was a filled in area. This you know, Surfside came to the end, and then I don't know, 50s or 60s, that was all filled and those house lots were created. Thank goodness we don't have too many more of those around. But that's a really vulnerable area. And I think that elevating that house would go a long way to protecting that piece of property and the inhabitants. So I don't see any reason that we wouldn't want to have them elevate that house, expanding the house a little bit or a substantial amount, but it's outside of that. They've kept it back quite a ways. And you know, maybe rather than fuss about the shed, there's a tree that's being removed and a couple things like that, whether any plantings or anything could be done along the edge of that concrete wall to maybe create a little bit of habitat or at least buffer that, in my mind, would be a good step in doing this work. That's my own personal opinion, to see to see some sort of planting strip or vegetation. You know, we've done this out on the cliffs, a couple of other areas where we asked the applicant to create a vegetated strip, and just by keeping in mind that area can get damaged, maybe there's a little better solution than running that right along there, or really thinking about what kind of plants you would put there. But to my way, I think right now it's just all lawn, and there's no other trees. So whether some things could be planted there to create a little better environment would be a consideration maybe for the commission members to think about. And then, Paul, do we have information for the soil logs? I mean, typically we've looked for driven piles. I know that concrete piers, I'm assuming when you say concrete piles, they're really piers, because you're not going to draw, there are such a thing as a driven concrete pile, but that's usually pretty much commercial application. You're not proposing driven piles, is that right?
No. No,
So you're talking about excavating and then pouring piers to elevate that house. And sometimes we'd see that happen when they can't like relocate the house. Typically, if the house could be lifted and shifted to one side or the other, the preference was to see driven piles. I don't know whether they have the ability to move that house one way or the other to drive that, or if there's a reason that the engineer or architect or the owner, Mr. Goodman's still on, maybe he could explain why they chose the concrete piers over driven piles. Would be helpful.
I do know, in speaking with the owner, that the structural engineer did do the soil borings, because he was aware of some of the soil conditions further down on Seagate Circle, which they apparently had not encountered in their soil testing, and that's the reason they went with a solid concrete piers, which they allowed, which they can use on a barrier beach.
I understand. I just looking at the differences and just get an explanation, that's all.
Frank, just for the record, the edge of pond we show on the plan, that's from the land court plan that was on in 1949.
Yep, but the real edge of the pond is almost out where it says owner.
It is.
If I'm
right. That's right.
I mean, you're just trying to confuse everyone, Paul, or what are we doing?
No, I'm just showing you where it is in 2022 as opposed to 1949 on the land court plan. The all that, Seagate Circle, as you mentioned earlier, was completely filled in. It's like a peninsula going out into Musquashnet Pond. I believe it was the Driscoll construction company that built all those homes. We have surveyed several of them.
Yep.
But that's clearly filled land.
Right. No, I just want to point out to the members that edge of pond is quite a ways away.
Oh, it is, yeah.
Okay, there's a pond, and then there's a marsh, and then there's the wall, and then there's that other line that you're showing, edge of pond. So, but that's just from an old plan, so. Okay. Anybody else? Bill?
I've got Christopher.
Oh, all
Goodman
right.
in his hand.
Chris, the owner would like to have a word, I guess. Mr. Goodman?
Yeah, thank you. And Bill and I are tag teaming because he was having a hard time raising his hand, but I can answer a couple of things there. The point you just raised is an important one. The shed looks like it's sitting on top of the pond. It's not. It's quite a ways back. And the reason that we didn't move it, we've looked into move it, is where you said, Penny, where it says previous existing garage. That is actually where water runs off across the driveway in the most severe storms. It doesn't come from the pond or from the berm. There's a house across the street on Surfside that has this kind of funky wall system that diverts the water, and it goes directly into that garage spot right there. The safest place on the entire property for that shed area is where it is. That's the driest. And in those worst case scenario situations, and I've lived there for 7, I've lived on the street for 10. So Yeah, so that's why it's there. I'm happy, as Bill said, I'm doing everything I can to make this house safe for a long time and compliant. So I'm happy to move it a bit. There's not a lot of spaces for it to go, but if that's an option to push it up towards the where the house is along that property line, if that would be feasible, it's way more expensive than you'd think. I've looked into it, but I'm happy to do that if that helps close this out. So the other question, just the concrete piers, is just storage is at a premium, and the more our cars gets just damaged from the salt in the air. So the more the concrete piers give us a little bit more options about the skirting that we might put around there to add a little bit better protection for things under the car, just so they don't get, so I'm not, buying cars every 2 years because of salt in the air. That's all. It was just better. And moving the house, we just did a bunch of work on the house. We were trying not to move the house and minimize the disruption to that. So it was just a couple of reasons why we chose the piers versus the driven piles. And then I know Bill wanted to kind of
It'll just cost you more money if he talks, but go ahead. Bill, can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, go ahead.
What my question is, because I think coming around from a commission standpoint, because for obvious reasons, Chris would like to get this going for his family standpoint. If we move this shed back 10 feet, I'm trying to find it, I don't know if that's to the north or whatever it is, to get that further away from the wall and the resource area. Is that something, because I know Penny, and I know it's the entire commission, but Penny, you were the first one who spotted that issue. Is that something that you think is sufficient?
Well, personally, I think if we're going to look for something to be done there, and we're a commission, so everybody has their opinion,
right?
But do we want to see him spend some money on that, or do some additional plantings? Would be my, or you can say you should do both. But right now he's elevating a home, and we're encouraging everyone to elevate a home. So he's already expending a tremendous amount of money on getting that home in the air. Yes, there's an addition involved in that, but there's a good sized maple or whatever that was in the back there. That's got to come down for some of that. So, if I were asking for someone to do something, I'd be looking for some plants, and I wouldn't be sweating it.
If you're looking for the plants, one of the challenges, Frank, is right along in that low-lying area. And Chris, as I already previously discussed with Chris, they've been trying to plant stuff there, and they've had a great difficulty getting stuff to grow there.
Well, even a couple of trees behind the house, just some sort of plantings that would help. Otherwise,
yeah, that's something you definitely can do.
Yeah,
that's my own thought. Amy, how do we want to proceed here?
Well, actually, I agree with what you just said, Frank, about mitigation plantings versus moving the shed, given the true proximity, I guess. But coming back around to still, uncertain about the accuracy of the resource areas. I do think this is a coastal dune. I think that that is going to affect the type of foundation. I suppose you could condition that it's just free flow wooden piles without footings, which is what the coastal building code would say for that area. But I also know that I suppose there could be a condition in there about the shed, that at the time that it needs to be repaired, or whatever, replacement would be in a different location. And also, just of note, when that day does come, that will need to also meet elevation requirements for FEMA, for coastal building code. And
So it's the
I think you could probably condition this project tonight.
Well, Well, the only thing, Amy, I just, I guess, is there a simple FEMA map or something that can be looked at to determine this? Because if that were my home and I had to elevate it and put something underneath it, I'd be looking to do the concrete footings and piers. I get what you're saying. If it's in that area that's more vulnerable to being washed out, then maybe driven piles are better. But if they have to, they can just lift this house up where it sits.
Well,
then
it's a matter of whether or not it's in the coastal dune, because the building code is quite clear that if it's a barrier beach and a coastal dune, that it needs to be elevated on open driven wooden piles without footings.
Okay, but how do we determine that?
Sediment.
So Paul, you said that the engineer did borings.
Yes, he did.
So can we just look, can we get access to those? Does that satisfy that?
I can try to get him, sure.
Amy, do you agree if we get that information, that we can settle that issue?
I think that issue could be settled with looking at the information. I mean, I'm not a coastal geologist, but I think that we could settle it. I was doing research on properties all in that area, and they all are in coastal dune. I mean, we could seek technical guidance from CZM on that. I know that we have actually on even actually up further Seagate, where it's filled back again, where that firehouse was, and it's like, is it barrier beach, is it coastal dune? And all those properties along Seaside have been both barrier beach and coastal dune.
But we're also allowed in places where they have to elevate the house, and there's an existing structure there, depending on the circumstances, we've allowed either foundation. I mean, if we can get some information on the sediment and what's there, and if that house could be amply protected either way, I don't see.
Yeah, exactly. So that's, again, I come back to, I think it could be conditioned. So we would just condition that it's elevated in compliance with coastal resource area, building code for coastal resource areas. And I mean, as we know, or if you're not aware, I can tell you that last week we were bringing FEMA around as part of a overall town-wide look-see on elevation projects and so on. So I know it's absolutely in the best interest of the town and our CRS reading and people's flood insurance rates that these houses be elevated in compliance. So I'm sure that if we put that condition in, just that it's meets building code, that building commissioner will also, make sure that the right thing is done. But I think that if we can get some test pits or borings to try to, or additional evidence, maybe that I know that there's coastal studies that have been done of that area. There's that townwide coastal study, and perhaps that has some information that could be used.
Okay. All right, so if we vote to close, we've got the piece about the foundation, protect about some plantings, Mr. Ornberger. One more thing, we got a few other hearings tonight. Is Bill unmuted?
Frank, what I was just talking about is, we'll take an extension to May 2nd, and we'll get the information to show that the piers are okay. And we'll also submit some proposed vegetation on that. So I think if we do that, then it's clean. You don't have to condition to that. Does that make sense?
We got a pretty full schedule, but I think if it's that simple, can we do that? May 2nd?
May 2nd is definitely better than April 19th.
Okay. All right, good. Let's do that.
Okay,
I'll take a motion.
so I'll make a motion that we continue 3 Seagate to May 2nd.
Okay, that was Penny. Do you have a second?
I will second that.
Thank you, Brendan. All in favor, Jen,
Yep.
Andy,
Yes.
Frank, yes. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Good night. So this is, we're going on to 537 Hadley Road. On April 4th, 5:30 PM, the Town Hall, Situate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 4 of the Mass General Laws and Section 30700 Town Situate Code of Bylaws regarding the application for Sue DePisa for constructing an addition to a single-family dwelling located at 537 Hadley Road, Situate, Mass. Other butters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information to access the virtual meeting is posted on the town website.
Frank, I
Okay.
have Greg Morse unmuted.
Great. Good evening.
Good evening. For the record, Gregory Morse, registered engineer, Morse Engineering, representing the property owner and applicant Sue DePisa. This is a notice of intent to allow the construction of an addition at her home located at 537 Hatherley Road. The property itself is 12,874 square feet, all of which is upland land area, with the exception that the entire lot falls within the floodplain. The FEMA zones being an AE zone 11 and an AE zone 13. For reference, the topography at the site lies between elevation 9 and 11. As depicted on the site plan here, you can see the outline of the existing home. The proposed addition is the bold black line. It would be a garage addition as well as a second story addition over the garage. We had proposed the dashed line behind the building and along the side lot lines as an erosion control barrier during the time of construction. In the removal of the, excuse me, the asphalt driveway and replacement as a gravel driveway to keep the impervious land surface down at the site. Submitted with our application was the notice of intent document. Included in Appendix B was a set of structural engineered plans by SSB Engineering, documenting that the addition would be FEMA compliant, specifically noting that flood vents would be installed in the addition. DEP had no comments on this. I'd turn it over to you. The addition is the only work proposed here. There's no change in the grade or fill being imported to the site.
Okay. Andy, you want to take this one first? Or Amy, rather, sorry.
Sure, I will.
Amy,
be-
I don't mean to keep cutting you off. I apologize.
No, that's okay. No, because we were, for so many years, we did it the other way. But anyways, I don't really have too much to say about this one. I think it's pretty straightforward. Actually, there was a project similar for the same property conditioned a few years ago that was never constructed. So this is a different version of that. I think that I agree with the resource areas and no DEP technical comment. I think you could probably close and condition this project.
Thank you. Okay, now Andy.
No, I would agree. I don't think I have any additional questions on this one.
Brendan?
No, I have no questions at this time.
Penelope? Thank you.
Looking good.
Jen?
I might have missed it, but are there any plans to transition from that gravel driveway to pavement as part of this project?
No, so the asphalt driveway gets removed and replaced with gravel.
Okay, so the whole thing's gonna be gravel.
Correct.
Nice, okay, thank you.
We have anybody in the audience?
Seeing none.
Great. I'm good with this.
So I can make a motion to close.
You could.
I make a motion to close.
Okay, Penny, we have a second.
I'll second that.
Thanks, Brendan.
Maybe a motion to issue too. How about that?
Okay, make a motion to close and issue.
I will second that as well.
Wow. Andy?
Yes.
And Jen?
Yep.
Frank, yes, great. Thanks, Greg.
Thank you very much.
So
Let's see it, one.
196 Central Ave.
Yes. I make a motion, we continue 196 Central.
Oh, let's open it first.
Oh, you gotta open it. Go open it.
On April 4th, 2022, at 5:30 PM, meeting at Town Hall, Situate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700 Town of Situate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of Mark and Holly Bossy for constructing a pier with a cantilevered kayak storage ramp float at location 196 Central Ave, Scituate, Mass. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information to access the virtual meeting is available on the town website.
Now I'll make a motion to continue 196 Central Ave to May 19th.
Can I just ask, was there a reason for that?
Well, yeah, actually, Penny, can we continue that to 4/19? We were gonna continue it to 5/2, but we'd like to put it on the 4/19.
Okay, April.
If we can, and it's, hopefully it'll be ready then, but the harbor master was looking for information.
That's
so
right.
It's in process.
Yeah, from the engineer. Yep.
Okay. So we got a motion to continue. Do we have a second?
I will second that.
Thank
That'd
you.
be awesome. Killing it tonight. All in favor, Jen?
Yep.
And Andy?
Yes.
And Frank, yes, great, thank you. 155 Hammerock Beach. On April 4th, 2022, at 5:30 PM in the Town Hall, Situate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws, and Section 30700 Town of Situate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of Stephen Snell for work related to raising and rebuilding a single-family dwelling at location 155 Hammerock Beach Road, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information to access the virtual meeting is available on the agenda on the town website. So who do we have for this one?
I have, we've got Paul Backus from Grady Consulting.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner, and the other members of the commission. My name is Paul Backus with Grady Consulting of Kingston, Massachusetts, on behalf of the applicant, SHS Builders. The applicant is proposing, we're here tonight for, we submitted a notice of intent in relation to the existing dwelling at 155 Hammerock Beach, with the intent to raise the existing development, raise as in elevate, not raise as in demolish. It was, I know it was listed and advertised as raise, R-A-Z-E, but this is actually raise, R-A-I-S-E, and elevate the existing structure. The existing dimensions of the structure shall remain the same. The site itself is, as I said, Hammerock Beach is located in a barrier beach and a coastal dune. The Atlantic Ocean is at the top of the page here. The elevation increases to a stone revetment, at which point the elevations of the site start to decrease all the way down to elevation 7 when you get to Central Ave, which is way down the bottom of the page. As I mentioned, on the right-hand side of the proposed conditions, the plan is to elevate the existing structure onto wooden piers. And the applicant also proposes a new deck that would also be on proposed piles, I should say, wooden piles. No changes in the setbacks in regards to the location of the house. Also shown on the plan are the utilities. We did receive some comments from an abutter regarding the septic system. That is just the existing septic system that was to retain. We were just showing that to show the location of utilities. Erosion control measures are, as in with a proposed silt fence, are shown along the side of the property. There's a storage stockpile area for the contractor within the front of the site, which would also be surrounded with a proposed silt fence. And with that, I'll open up any questions the commission may have.
okay, thank you. I think we circled back here to Penny. Amy,
questions.
Amy.
Oh, all right, Amy. You're right.
Okay, I'll be quick too, and
A rat could learn faster. Go ahead.
well, so we all know Humrock very well, and accurate description of the resource areas. The only thing I wanted to call out, I mean, we're happy with the elevation in accordance with FEMA and coastal building code. But one thing is, I'm not sure I really like the stone revetment labeled up at the top of the plan. It's not really accurate to call that a stone revetment, in my opinion. I think we should probably throw a condition in, just so it's clear that that is not to be like
We're not accepting that
moved
as
upon, and you know what I
existing
mean?
condition. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's no DEP comment, and I think it could probably be closed and conditioned.
Okay. All right. So, Penny?
Nope, I'm all set. It looks good. Like to get things in the air.
Okay. Jen?
Yeah, I'm good with Amy's comments and updates on that.
Andy?
Looks good to me.
Brendan?
Looks good to me as well. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have anybody in the audience for this? Is
Yes, I have Renee. Oh, we have two, SHS and Renee. I'm gonna unmute SHS.
okay.
Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me okay?
We got you. Can you just state your name and address, please?
Stephen H. Snell, SHS Builders, 36 Birch Road, Norfolk, Mass.
Hey, Stephen.
Question about the stone. Could you clarify that? I'm sure Paul will explain it to me, in detail, but just so I can understand what you're referring to.
So this, when you have a plan, when the commission approves a project, we're looking at the whole plan. And if on that plan, we were to recognize that stone revetment, we'd really need a lot more information on that, whether it truly exists in that fashion and whatnot. So rather than have you go through the expense or whatever of really showing that stone, we're just going to say that the commission isn't accepting that as a true stone revetment there. We don't have any real information on it. So we're not saying remove it. We're not saying do anything to it, nor are we going to say that it truly exists in that fashion. It's sometimes gets a little more critical in places where like a wetland line is shown and then the commission accepts the plan. And then someone down the road goes back and says, well, you said my wetland line was there. So in order to really do that, we'd have to have an expert or somebody come out and verify that exists in that fashion. So not to say that there isn't some stone there, but we don't really have a lot of information. And unless you want to do all that, it doesn't seem pertinent to your project.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Okay.
Just to clarify that, the stone revetment label was added because that was what I received from our wetland, from our bot. That's T-head labeled it as stone revetment.
Okay. But you understand, in order to do that, we'd wind up having to have somebody look at it.
Happy to take it off.
Okay. And then Renee.
Let me unmute Renee, yes.
Hello?
Hi, can you give us your name and address for the record?
Yes, my name is Renee Barry, Renee Maria Barry. I live at 156 Hummerock Beach, Hummerock, Mass.
Yep.
So I have just a few questions regarding this. I know everybody is okay with I don't know if this falls under the purview of conservation, but I'd like to know if a perk test has been done and for the sewer, the septic.
The engineer, is there a proposed septic system here? I
No,
guess there
this is an existing septic system that is being retained. There's no changes to the existing septic system.
So they
This is
wouldn't,
not-
yeah, so
this
they
is
wouldn't
not a
need a perk
proposed-
test.
Yep, this is
I
not a
see.
proposed system.
Okay.
When I was looking at the agenda and the notes, it said something about the septic system being redone.
No, I don't see that.
No, it's just being
No, I
retained.
see it. I think it's a typo.
Yep.
It's just
Okay.
raise as in RAISE and elevate.
But I did notice that we should be raising, not raising.
Yeah, I see that, but I was specifically asking about the perk test for the septic.
Yeah.
So the septic is staying exactly where it was because I live right next door.
Yeah, there's
Yes.
going to be no changes to the septic.
And because it's being raised, RAISE, is there any, what's happening with any of the pipes being laid and that type of thing? How does that all work?
They're gonna be driving piles, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So-
So, you know, they'll reconnect, like the water and the gas and whatnot gets reconnected after,
Straight up.
after the house is elevated.
And so one thing I'm concerned about is, you know, has there been any variances or anything, or is this all going to be exactly where the house is and only going up? And if so, I'm a little bit worried about about anything sliding, landslides, anything that might affect the house, you know, and the dune.
It doesn't appear to me to be any real excavating or anything unless maybe there's a little, obviously there's a foundation that has to be removed and filled in. Can you elaborate on that for us?
There's just a crawl space. That's a CMU foundation. So yeah, that would be removed. They would have to fill that in with sand.
That's it.
And what kind of sand are you proposing? And I know I'm sorry if I'm asking questions that might, you know, not fall under the conservation purview, but I do want to know what kind of sand is going to be filled in under there. It's not going to be trucked in, and it's going to be something that's natural to the environment.
Well, they can't take it from the beach, so it is going to get trucked in.
Is it going to be something that has happened in the past where it's the aggregate is from Boston? Is it going to be tested is what I'm asking.
It's going to be clean coarse sand. It's not going to have rocks or anything like that. Just simple clean coarse sand.
I understand, but what kind of sand is it going to be? Is it going to be this kind of sand that's dirty and that might have chemicals in it? Are you shipping it from Boston? Where are you getting it?
I think that's going to be up to the contractor to do that, and we don't allow contaminated material to be used on the site. So typically, as a contractor, we see this sort of material come from like the Plymouth area, Carver, someplace to the south. There's a few companies that specialize in bringing in fill and we can put a condition on the project that it needs to be clean, compatible sand, but
Frank, Paul Armstrong is on the line. He might be able to also offer some comments on that.
First,
Well,
just
let's-
want to
let's-
say
why do
thank,
you
I just
go
want
ahead.
to thank, I just want to thank Frank for saying that, because I think that's really important, because I know that there's oftentimes, you know, and this is not personal because I like Stephen Snell, but I also know that I live there. This has been a community, you know, I've lived there my whole life. And I care about the land. I own the land. I own the property where I live. And I have more vested in it than a contractor. So I appreciate, Frank, you're saying that you'll put that kind of a condition on it. I'd like it to be tested before it's allowed to be
I
brought
didn't
in.
say, I didn't say it would be tested. I said that we will put a condition on there that the material be clean, sandy fill that is appropriate for that site, that it really isn't, they can't use construction, demolition, or anything like that. And I think maybe it's better if the contractor answered, but they're putting it in a site that's adjacent to the beach. They
Mhm.
can't bring in contaminant. That's just a law that you can't do that.
Okay.
All right. Do you
Thank
have any
you. I
other, before we jump to Paul, is there any other questions that you have? I understand as a neighbor, you have, concern, and we want to make sure they're covered.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that, and I'll be quick. I have a list of questions, but I'll try to eliminate some of them. Because they are going to be removing a foundation, what exclusion methods are they anticipating for neighboring homes regarding rodent and rats and that type of thing?
Do you, either the engineer or Paul want to answer? I mean, I'm glad to unmute Paul and let him answer some of these, or Grady, whichever, whoever wants.
Paul can weigh in.
Okay.
Paul Armstrong can weigh in.
All right, let's just try to stick right to the questions, Paul. Can we unmute Paul?
Well, you know what? I don't see the option to unmute Paul. I just see the camera and lower hand. Paul, are you in as somebody else too? Like, is there a phone number?
All
Hello?
should be good now.
Got you.
Hello?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
We can.
All right. Yeah, hi, Paul Armstrong, 33 Reeves Road in Marshfield. No, just to answer your questions, Renee, any of the material that we're bringing in after the house is elevated in the air, all the concrete block is going to be removed, and we typically bring in perk sand. That's just the preview of what we've always done. It's a compatible sand for the beach, and any rodent control. I mean, the house has already been, like I say, Steve Schnell, the building company, they've already gutted the house, so there's nothing inside it at this point. It's just this has triggered a substantial improvement, which has caused this to get elevated. But rodent control in the history of worked in Humrock Beach, I've never seen any rodents down here in my almost 40 years in business. But everything that we're doing is no different than any other project that we've done on this beach for these past several decades, and it's going to be clean and quick. No grades are changed to be proposed differently than what's there. Just tying everything in.
Okay, let's just see if we can answer the questions. What other?
I just have a follow-up to that question.
Yeah.
For what Paul Armstrong just answered. I understand that the sand is going to be compatible sand, and I wanted to know regarding the rodent control. There's usually something called exclusion that I'm friendly with the commissioner and at the state level for rodents. He's the commissioner for all of the rodent control. I know that when you lift a house or take out an existing foundation, that you disturb mice. I'm not talking rats, I'm talking mice.
Yes, I understand. Yeah.
And so I just want to know, there's usually exclusion is done, and so that the building is wrapped, so neighbors don't have to have the mice or the rats possibly, run over to the neighbor's house. Don't want that to happen. I understand that they're not in the home. I want to know what you're doing to wrap the home for exclusions, so I don't have that kind of problem. And if I do have that kind of problem, because I haven't had that problem in years, I just want to make sure that there's insurance in place so that I don't have to have that.
Yeah, you know what, this is pretty much outside of our purview. We don't.
I thought so. So, okay.
Good.
So what do I do at that point?
I guess you could address the building department, but as far
Okay.
as commission's concerned, we don't need to get
Okay.
involved in that.
Okay. All right.
Anything else?
Yes.
Because we've
So
got several
once the-
here. We have some more hearings to go to, and we're going to lose a commission member. So we really need to move through this.
So I do have other questions, and I'm a neighbor. Do you want me to, can it
Just-
be continued then? Because,
No, I don't want to continue it. So let's just move
Okay.
through them pretty quickly if we could, please.
okay, so once the order of conditions are met, is that then the building department that I can speak to about my other questions that probably and most likely don't fall under the purview? Are
You
there
could-
any? That's my question.
Yeah, it's not an open format like this. So if you have concerns, I would assume that maybe you want to write a letter and send them to the building department. and then they can address them if they, that would be up to them. We don't have control in the building department.
And I'm not sure if the last question on my list of questions, the other ones I'll leave for the building department. What is the time defined for the storage containers that have been, left on Cranewood Way for some time now?
That's the building department.
That's the bill. Yeah, they have been there for quite a while. I just want to know when that's going to be removed. Okay,
That's a
thank you.
question for the building department. All right.
Okay. Yep. Yes.
Okay.
And are there any variances being, requested, or I don't think so based upon what you were saying, Frank, but
I don't think so. Amy, we don't have any variances for this, right? It's
No.
pretty straightforward.
Paul Backus can answer that, please.
No variances are being requested.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Paul, next time you can see if you can get your audio removed.
Okay.
The video rather. We've got a good shot of your right ear.
Yeah, good. Thanks.
Anybody else?
Seeing none, Frank.
Okay, so I'll take a motion.
Oh, I make a motion to close 155 Hammerock Beach.
Great, thank you, Penny. We have a
Well-
second.
Second, Andy.
Thank you, Andy. All in favor? Jen,
Yes.
Brendan,
Yes.
and Frank, yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Have a good night. We're at 237 Central Ave.
Yeah, they're gonna continue. Did you open them yet?
Can I do that?
Yeah, I think you
Oh,
have
thank
to.
you.
You're welcome.
Good. On April 4th, 2022, at 5:30 PM in the Town Hall, the Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Mass General Laws and Section 30700, Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of David Vogel for work related to rat. So this is going to be a tear down and rebuilding a single-family dwelling at location 237 Central Ave, Scituate, Mass. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information access to virtual meetings available on the agenda posted on the website.
Okay, and I will make a motion to continue 327 Central Ave to April 19th.
That's good with everybody? Okay,
Yeah,
So-
that's the request. No,
Okay.
yeah, without further discussion.
yep.
Okay.
And
Second,
Frank, as we move into the public
Yes, sir. What are we
meeting
looking for?
portion of this for the RDAs.
Okay,
We're gonna try to take, actually not, we're gonna try to, we are going to take 76 Lighthouse prior to 126 Turner.
okay, but we gotta finish the continuance for,
Oh, I thought you already did, sorry.
no, we need a second.
Second from Jen.
thanks, Jen. All in favor? Andy,
Yes.
Brendan,
Yes.
Frank, yes. Thank you. Okay, now we can do that. So we're gonna go 76 Lighthouse first.
Yes.
On April 4th, 2022, during the 5:30 meeting at Town Hall, Scituate Conservation Commission will act on the request of Mary Ann Murphy for delineation, for determination of applicability of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Scituate Wetlands bylaws for activity related to extending an existing deck and new footing at dwelling located at 76 Lighthouse Road, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information to access the meeting will be available on the agenda posted on the town website. Okay, and who do we have?
The only one I have listed is the owner, Marion
I'm
Murphy.
the owner. Yes.
Okay.
Should I
So if
speak?
you, yeah, if you could just state your name, address, and give us a little explanation of what you'd like to do, please.
Mary Ann Murphy, 76 Lighthouse Road, Scituate. I want to extend the existing deck out 6 feet into my lot. That's really all I want to do. Go out 6 feet, so it will be 6 by 18 feet. It'll completely extend out the existing deck that's there.
Okay, so we're seeing a little shaded area in purple, Mrs. Murphy.
Yeah.
And so there's a property line, so I'm assuming that you own the adjoining
We own the
lot.
adjacent, yes.
Okay. Great. And do you have any just, is it gonna be supported by piles
Yes, it's going to be, I thought,
or sonotubes?
it's gonna be
or-
pilings or whatever. They're 4 feet in, 10 feet, 10 inches wide. They're going to be cement footings.
There you go.
That's the word.
Perfect. Okay. So
Okay,
more like a sonotube, sure, great.
yeah,
All right,
all right.
yep. So Amy,
So it's in land subject to coastal storm flowage, obviously, and sonotubes, looks like it meets the requirements of a negative finding.
okay. Jen Foley,
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Andy,
Yeah, I think it's okay. I mean, do we need to say anything just in terms of water flowing, like about what goes on the side of the deck? I mean, it's fine with the deck being up, but do we need to determine anything to make sure that whatever's put on the, underneath allows water to flow?
Well, it'll be the same as the existing deck, which has gravel underneath it. The
Or are you
water
talking about
flows-
the lattice?
I'm talking, yeah, lattice for lack
Oh,
of a
the
better
lattice. We'll just do the same lattice. Water goes through it.
Is
Okay.
it wood or plastic?
I guess, as long as water goes through it, I guess I'm asking Amy,
Yeah.
other commissioners, if we need to set anything just to make sure that that's.
sure. Okay, Brendan,
Yeah, it looks good to me.
Penny,
Nope, all good.
okay. Do we have anybody in the audience for this?
Saying none, Frank.
Okay, so this is an expansion of something in a resource area. I mean, it's a simple deck with sonotubes. So it's not like it's any coverage of anything significant. I didn't go out to the site. Do we know if there's any other issues on that site or anything, Amy, if they've ever been?
So sorry, it's lawn currently,
Yeah,
and there's nothing that I've encountered on this site.
okay.
Looks good.
Okay,
Okay,
yep.
I make a motion for a -3.
Do I have a second?
Second that.
Second. Brendan beat me.
Did. All in favor? Jen,
Yep.
Andy,
Yes.
and Frank, yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That's it. 126 Turner Road, this was continued. Can we take like a 3-minute break here?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, I'll be right back. Back in, everybody.
So on to 126 Turner, which is a continuance of the
Gesundheit.
after the fact driveway.
Are we running?
Yes.
Everybody,
It's
can you
on
hear us?
record. Yeah.
I'm seeing
Is everybody
people,
here?
Amy's talking, but I'm not hearing it.
Oh,
Frank,
I can hear her.
I think, does Frank have a headset on? Does he need that?
Oh, no, he doesn't.
It's a good thing that, it's a really good thing. Jen, don't laugh too hard.
You getting
Make sure
old
that
already?
make sure that laughter is recorded in the meeting minutes.
Oh.
That is a very good.
I think we might. Now I can't even look over at Jen. That was so,
Great to see what.
oh my God. It's been a long day. I hope you're all enjoying that. Jake,
I am.
I'm glad.
Goofball.
All right, enough.
Moving on.
Oh, Lord. Okay,
I'm
126 Turner Road. This was continued from 228. Said after the fact for a driveway. Amy, where did we leave off here?
Well, we left off after a pretty lengthy discussion with the homeowner about the fact that you guys were gonna take a drive by and we are gonna think about options. You know, we talked a lot about the interests of the Wetlands Protection Act and storm damage protection, storm damage protection, flood control. Just the fact that it's an after the fact filing. Does that bring you up to speed?
Yep. Okay, so is anybody, maybe I could just start with Penny? We don't have Richard or Doug here tonight.
Yeah. Well, I feel as though we need an NOI. I also feel we need an enforcement order. Personally, I feel for Mr. Lance, but it's wrong what's in there, and I feel it has to come out, and he has to start from square one and get an engineer out there and go through the NOI process. But in the meantime, I do feel he needs to remove the concrete, the rebar, the whole mess as soon as possible under an enforcement order. That's it.
Okay. How about Jen?
I was really hoping you were going to say Andy.
Okay, Andy.
No, I'm not going to do that, Tim. I think Penny said it well. I think if it hadn't, it's hard to determine what should be there, given so much shouldn't be there. So I think I would echo many of Penny's sentiments.
Okay. Andy?
Yeah, I think I'm in a similar place. I think this needs to go through the proper process. We need to see what the options are, get the right people out there to look at it. And like right now, it was done without the right process, and we got to the wrong result. So we gotta figure it out.
Okay, Brendan?
Yeah, I don't have anything additional to add. I kind of have the same sentiment here.
Okay. Do we have anybody in the audience for this?
Yeah, this is Jeff Lance, a homeowner, 126 Turner Road.
Okay, Mr. Lance.
I'm sitting here shaking. I know it's been a while, but I mean, I did back in August ask for a pre-review, which I never got. Time kept ticking on. We had another storm. I got to the point after our storm in October, I had exposed sewage pipes. I had exposed water pipes. You saw the video. You saw the photographs. Almost 4 feet of erosion and the sidewalk collapsing almost to the road. I'm a 30-year Navy veteran, service-connected disabilities. I'll be moving to this house full time within 2 years when my wife retires. I'm trying to protect my property. The erosion there, I mean, obviously, you guys know how bad it is, and it's the reason the town and county and state about to spend millions and millions and millions of dollars to raise the seawall. Everything there, because I'm right at the end of the breakaway that goes out into the ocean. The water just gathers up there and comes over the seawall, right down my driveway. I did even provide videos that had to be relatively short. It was about a 15-second video, I think, to Amy and Jen shortly after, I think a day or two after our last meeting in February, just to show the extent of the water damage that comes down there. I spent, I had 2 different construction companies come out and look at that. And they said, really, the only way to do this without it continually being washed away was to go with the concrete and the rebar. There was asphalt there before, up until the point of the no-name storm in '91, and that got washed out, all down into the wetlands, and a lot of it's still at the foot of my driveway. I had most of it hauled away, but there's photos of it there before the work was done. That work just cost me $40,000 to have done, to have that concrete put in. I stayed within, the boundary of the property and the original driveway. I'm over 50 feet from the wetlands. It's roughly 60 feet from the last survey that I looked at. Just removing that driveway. I mean, if I just continued to put gravel in that driveway, it would just continue to pile up in the marsh or the wetland. It actually goes down, swings around to the right, toward where the basketball court is, a little bit to the left of that, but it would just keep filling up. So I really felt I was doing the right thing, in addition to having to want to quickly protect the sewage line before that was breached, and you had all the sewage from Turner Road going into the wetlands. I tried to do the right thing. The last storm that we had in February, I had videos of that, and I provided photos that are in the package in the plan, and it shows the water going down. It's not being forced to go down a 4-foot gully. Now it's spread out. It was only like 3 inches deep, even though the water was pummeling over the seawall. And there was less erosion than what I had seen in the previous storms, when it was forced to go down faster through those gullies. So, I'm willing to put larger rocks in. I had the same rock that they were putting underneath the cement, what they call riprap. It was like 6 inch roughly in diameter. I had them put a couple, I don't know, maybe two ton of that at the end. But some of that's even, dispersed, and that maybe isn't adequate. I'm willing to, pay for larger rocks to be put in at the end of the driveway. If I don't know that they would stay there, but if some plantings would help, be willing to do that. But I just, I kind of really kind of begging for some mercy here to rip. It would probably cost me more than it cost me to put the driveway in to remove it, and then we're back to square one. And so I don't know what else to say.
Well, I think that you can sense the frustration of the commission that we have some enforcement hearings after this tonight, where people have gone ahead and done things without proper permission or without filings and things. And at this point, what's the point in us doing our work when people take it upon themselves to do something that they want to do? I mean, it seems to me like you were aware that you needed to file in a permit to do this, and you took it upon yourself to just go ahead and do that. And it's a town of thousands of people. If everyone just went out and built or did what they wanted to do without following that protocol, if you would come before the commission, we would have explained what was allowed in your area, including, pavers, pervious solutions, maybe some different mitigation at the end. A lot of those things could have been dealt with, and instead you've gone ahead and filled the whole side of your lot with concrete. And I don't see how you think that the commission can just go ahead and say, well, that's okay. It doesn't, that doesn't make any sense to folks serving here. I mean, we try to work with people and look at their situation, see what can be done to help things work. We're willing to do that sort of thing. Unfortunately, it's very busy. The commission's getting constant filings, and it takes time to weed through all those pieces and get it done. If you had come to the commission and said, hey, I'm losing my driveway and I need to put some stones in here for the time being to hold this, I don't think that you would have had any issue at all. We could have issued that under some sort of emergency or some sort of minor activities permit. But instead you chose to install a whole concrete driveway, which is not, that application is not permitted in this area. So I'm not sure what you think. I'm not sure what you think the commission, how else we can view this.
I understand, and I agree. I ended up not filing for it in the proper sequence, right? In my opinion, and I agree, it was my opinion. I was kind of running out of time, and I wanted to protect, what was left there. And I guess to a certain point, I was also slighted by the fact that, that we discussed at the last meeting, my neighbor 2 doors down had done their entire lot. My driveway's 12 foot wide. They had done an entire, 40, 50 foot lot in asphalt. Another neighbor 4 houses the other way toward the general store just paved his lot and built a wall. I'm not going to name names, right? Throw anybody under the bus. But it seems that people were protecting their property. The entire lot, half an acre probably at the general store is paved, and that it butts right up against the wetlands. It just seems like I'm being kind of singled out here for, I don't know, maybe I'm just the one that got caught, I guess. I don't know.
Well,
I really felt like I was doing something, and I'm not the expert. I'm the first one to say that, but I was an engineer. I mean, I looked at it like, this is going to be the best thing, yeah, it's going to protect my driveway and my property so I can be able to get in my house. But I also felt it was preventing, 50, 60 yards of gravel getting washed into the wetlands every time we have a storm. And if I put cobblestones there, it would probably happen too. My neighbor has cobble and her stuff is all collapsing already. She's afraid to drive on it until she has somebody come back to look at it. So, I mean, that's just gravel underneath the cobblestone, right? Or stone dust. And you get enough water and that stuff, the man who builds his house on the sand, right? So
there are situations, Mr. Lance, where if things were done before the Wetlands Protection Act or things that the commission's unaware of. I mean, we're looking at your photographs and I'm looking at the house down the way, and I'm wondering how that area got paved in that fashion, and that may be something that the commission's gonna take a look at, to see how that, you know, if someone paves over an existing driveway, we have someone come before the commission, they already have a pre-existing driveway, and it's paved, and they've just looking to repave it. We look for them to reduce the size of the paving. We look for them to do some additional mitigation. We encourage them to do the pervious application as opposed to that, but we don't usually take something away if they already have it, especially if it involves elevating their home or adding a septic system or something like that. But in the case where there isn't anything there before that we're aware of, and the person's aware that they really need to come before the commission, we look pretty hard at that. There's a couple of things that can happen here. I think it was alluded to. You can file a notice of intent, and you can kind of come up with some sort of solution or proposed solution or mitigation to what you've done. Perhaps the commission members would consider as an alternative to totally tearing everything out. I'm not quite sure. That's up to the commission members how they want to look at that. But at this point, the commission could give you fines and then you know, the order to remove that, or you can try to come up with a solution that might be something they'd consider.
Yeah, I mean, I'm willing to, you know, maybe here's some of the members' ideas, you know, on potential mitigations that I could do, short of, you know, ripping up the entire driveway.
Amy, where this is under an RDA, at this point, this could get a negative, a positive finding,
Yeah.
which shifts it over to a notice of intent.
Yeah.
Would it make sense to get that moving and either meeting with commission members on site or some other?
Well, so you're going to issue a positive finding, you're going to vote to issue a positive finding. And then, well, as I understood, you're also going to concurrently run an enforcement order for restoration. I mean, I suppose instead of just straight up restoration, you could require under the enforcement order, the notice of intent. And, but that way there, I don't know, the thing is though, is that if you do that, now you're going to go into the public hearing process, which will, I mean, require engineered plans. I mean, so that's all good. Although it just shifts the jurisdiction a little bit off of the notice of intent, because it makes a decision on the project potentially appealable. Whereas if you keep it as an enforcement, it's not. So, I mean, because you could, I still think you need both, honestly. So you can have a positive finding and then an enforcement, maybe, and for restoration. And then, I don't know, and then the applicant can get an engineer and try to figure out if he can create this project into more of a compliant project with mitigation. I guess that could be an option.
Okay. All right, well, this isn't conditionable under an NOI, so we're gonna get a positive finding. And then I think the commission needs to decide how we want to move forward with that, either finding and in order to remove it or to get the notice of intent and see if they can come up with something that the commission could consider. Does that make sense to anybody?
No.
Penny?
I'm just having a really hard time, Frank, understanding how a notice of intent with the driveway as it exists now staying put, he can make it viable. He's got walls and he has a solid surface.
I'm not saying it would stay put the way it is. I'm saying
Yeah.
that he would
Oh,
file
okay.
a notice of intent and then move to either change entirely or modify what he's done. So we move either to that direction and work with the applicant to figure out what he can do with that, or it's still a positive finding.
Yes.
And then we move for an enforcement order to remove everything. But at that point, then he's got no driveway again, and everything dug up and potential for more erosion. So my thinking is that it should really go to a notice of intent with a plan to do both things. To come up with, which, and it sounds a little contrary because in the meantime, what he has there stays there. But I'm not sure that the best solution is to first rip it all out and then come up with a new plan. If it were my project, I'd say, let's get somebody on board that can show some alternatives that might help in some fashion. You know, maybe, I don't know what they are, but.
My other concern is a time frame, Frank.
Yep.
I don't wanna, okay, we're gonna do a positive, we know that.
Mhm.
And I don't wanna go by there next fall and nothing's been done. And no notice of intents come in. I mean,
Okay, so Amy, you know, we're dealing with this situation down at Oceanside with some of these pieces. If we have a positive finding, and then can we give the applicant a period of time to get something into us before we issue fines or whatever? I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, Frank, you could even establish or talk about that just real quickly on a time frame, because that is something that I can put in the enforcement order. Like, you know what I mean? File this by, that type of thing.
Okay.
yeah, that's my only concern. I feel, but it's a shame. It didn't have to be like this.
All right, well, we got there fast, so.
Yeah.
Anybody
Now we
else,
gotta make the best of it.
does anybody else have any input they want to give on this right now? What about a time frame?
One process question. If this does not seem to be moving ahead, the decision we're going to make now, if we go with the NOI, are we precluded from later on issuing an enforcement order? So let's say like the whole thing stalls out. Could we decide later to say, you know what, let's do an enforcement order and have it all ripped up? Are we closing that off?
No.
Well, I almost think, don't we want to issue an enforcement order? We're gonna do this. We're gonna issue an enforcement order, and we're gonna give the applicant some period of time to file an NOI with what they propose to do. Because we don't want them to just go out and do something again.
Right.
We want control over that. So
Right.
I think it's a positive finding, and then it's an enforcement order with a time period, a couple of months, whatever, that they need to file with us with a plan to restore or some alternative. That would be my thinking. Am I on the-
Because, I mean, just to remind you that we have had some experience with handling these cases this way. I mean, the first like kind of like suggestion is to try to do it as an after the fact filing, but I understand your concerns here. And I know that in the past, positive findings with that NOI requirement don't always happen unless you know, you have that second document.
Enforcement.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, do we need to vote an enforcement order or are you good to go with that?
I think we have direction to pursue it and we'll be talking about it again. It'll go on the enforcement list.
Okay.
Okay, but I will make a motion for a positive finding on 126 Turner Road.
Okay, so we have a motion from Penny, a second from
Andy.
From Andy. All in favor, Jen?
Yep.
Brendan? Brendan's gone, and Frank, yes. So do you want to get some sort of letter together to go back to Mr. Lance? Do we want to vote on a time period that we want to see something by?
Oh, yeah. 2 months
Or do you want to give Amy some direction for that?
by
for-
June,
Yeah, I mean, I think that,
April, May, by June 1st.
right, but I mean, given the economy and availability of engineers, I mean, I think that,
I think we could hear
I
from
think
somebody.
a
by-
really short time frame might be hard to accomplish.
Well,
But
2 months, that's not that short, is it?
I think at least we could hear from somebody by then, Amy.
yes, yeah.
That would be talking to the commission and see what they could work out.
Yeah.
So,
Can,
All right.
can I ask, like, I'm trying to figure out what you're about to ask me to do. Is it to like get an engineer to look at potential mitigations that,
I think an engineer would look at this, Mr. Lance, and look at the requirements for that area and then give you some recommendations on how you or they would best handle this situation.
so it's not, I guess, you know, putting additional rocks at the end of the driveway to slow the flow down. I mean, the water's gonna continue to come down, hopefully whenever that seawall is raised. And do you have any idea? I mean, I read the plans and I see what's proposed to build a wall and increase it 3 feet higher. When that's gonna happen?
They don't have any idea right now. We conditioned that project, and to the best of my knowledge, DPW is just looking for either grants or funding or something like that, but they wanted to have their project all approved so that should these things, funding come along, that they're ready to take it. But to the best of my knowledge, nothing's ready to go forward on that.
Yeah, because until that's done, you know, it's only gonna get worse when we have the storm, so.
I think that
No matter what I do, it's short of what I've already done.
well, I mean, right now you can't even put anything beyond the end of your driveway unless you get permission from, I guess it's the town, whoever owns that property beyond you.
Yeah, the town.
Yeah.
The town owns it, sure.
So we don't have the authority to say, go ahead and do that. I really think that you would be better suited to be talking to someone that understands this and can come back and say, listen, I think here's the best solution for this project, and let the commission consider that.
Well,
And-
and Frank, I
okay.
think also it's the property, because, you know, it's not necessarily just this area that was filled in, because as I understand it, that there's actually a driveway on the left side of the house that is the primary access point into the house. And this was just a second driveway that was, you know, well, we're not going to rehash this, but that it, you know, was like solving the issues that were brought up as far as like trying to, what Mr. Lance said.
A driveway on each side of
But
the house.
anyways, an engineer is gonna look at the whole property, not just, you know, and evaluate how it's gonna meet.
Right.
Yeah, my driveway, you know, which is basically, I own the whole lot next to the house, so I also use that to park cars. So there's entrances on both sides. And the side to the left of the house was washed out in the last storm. Well, the blizzard we had in January, February. So I've got, you know, 3-foot gullies there as well that I've not done anything with for fear of doing the wrong thing.
All right. We have a couple more hearings, pieces that we have to run through tonight. So I'm thinking that you need to, you need to get to somebody, and the discussion at the moment is how much time do we want to,
2 months.
Right, and if it can't get done in 2 months, which this isn't an out, but you know, clearly communication is the answer to all of these enforcement sites, as long as we know we have, you know, work is being done in the direction we want it to go, that's a good thing.
I agree, but I think we need to see real substantial forward progress.
Yep.
Right, but then certainly a scope of work could be, you know, and or the notice of intent, sure, absolutely.
Okay.
So.
All right. Do we vote that? A positive?
No.
Okay.
I think we did.
Yep.
I think we did vote that already. We
All right,
didn't
yep.
talk about the time frame.
And Amy's got the direction
Yeah.
to move forward and
Get that out.
so we're gonna give that along
possible.
with the enforcement order and we'll take it from there.
Okay. Yep, moving on.
Okay.
Commercial farming.
Andy?
Sure. So progress has been made. I think we have a license that has been, I think, reviewed and pretty much in final iteration at this point. We have a RFP to be posted that's been approved. So been working with Amy if we can get that posted on the website and town email, and hopefully we'll get some proposals.
Awesome.
That's
Thank
great,
you.
Andy.
Can that same license apply to Border Street, do you think, Andy?
Yeah, I think we have the, and we might need to send it for quick review if we change the payment or something, but I think that 90% of it would be the same.
Great, because I do think we should work towards getting that, at least keep a maintenance thing, if we can find someone that would be willing to at least hay it or something till we come up with something better, but rather than let it start to just get out of control.
Yep.
That's awesome. It's amazing how complicated some of these things can get. I'm also still trying to weed through the fence thing, so I'll talk to you about that a little bit. But
I got gardeners ready to go, but they're looking for, they're wondering about the fence, so we'll figure that out as our next step.
Maybe they just have to take turns keeping the deer away for a bit.
Yeah,
but
we'll
let's
have an
figure it out.
overnight watch.
All right.
Good luck.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thanks for working that through. Who knew? All right. Coastal Advisory Commission liaison. So we're looking for, Jen's been filling this position for a while now. I think Richard had it when it first came out. I did it for some time. Then it sort of went dormant for a while, but now they're back at it, and it seems busier than ever. So it's not a simple something that you just get on.
They're now meeting monthly, and at the library and in person. So that's the scope of it. The new resource officer is very engaged and communicative. I don't think it's truly a liaison. it's not Andy having to like figure out a farming license again. Not that Andy has to do this, but it's a liaisonship as opposed to a solve our coastal resiliency issue. And we don't have to do it tonight. It's just more of a, in the next couple meetings that we will need to.
And the importance of the commission, I think, be involved in that is most of it will be conditioning. So it's good to have somebody keep an ear to that. And keeping up that communication going. But I don't think it's something that you'd have to be at every single meeting for either. Is that, what do you think, Jen?
No, I don't think so. The minutes for the last meeting definitely had like 50-60% attendance. But yeah.
Okay. Well, if you guys could think about it, gals, and see how we can somehow.
Or we can just assign it to Doug since he's not here.
Hmm.
I'm kidding. I like Doug. I wouldn't do that to him.
Oh, you don't like the rest of us?
No, I like everybody. I wouldn't
Well,
wanna do that.
Richard was really good at it.
Yeah.
We should send it back to Richard. Oh,
He hasn't had to do it for a few years.
yeah.
I'm sure I can guilt him into it after he understands the rationale.
There you go. All right, well, let's, it's on the radar. How's that?
Great.
Might not be at the center, but it's not on the
That's
other
fine.
edge either. Okay, appreciate it. Enforcements for Dunbar, Oceanside. Amy, you
Okay.
wanna?
we're gonna hopefully pick up the pace here a little bit. I'm just gonna give you a quick
Quick.
update on 7 Dunbar. So I did get an email from Art Allen saying there's been some correspondence that a date is forthcoming soon. But meanwhile, questioning whether we should be issuing an official enforcement order on that, just to make sure it keeps going, although there is an open notice of intent that is active. And actually, I can't recall even what the status of that notice of intent really is. I think it was continued to a date. So it might be coming up again.
Why don't we, Amy, let's pick a date now that if we don't hear from them by, then we'll move with the enforcement order. Can we?
Yeah.
Can we just say, we want to do this in the next 20 days or 30 days, that if we don't have a time, then we're going to go with the enforcement order and possible fines.
Sounds good.
Is that reasonable?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so 33 and 43 Oceanside.
So I think that you're all aware of the status of that one, and that the proponent has largely brought those sites back into compliance. And that on the one that we most recently had in front of us, which is 33 Oceanside. I'm starting to lose it. Sorry, I'm living on Nina corn chips right now. So, but I think it was 33 Oceanside, right? Is the one that is going to come back to us, and they have another version of a wall that they're going to file. They'll request either a notice of intent or a request to amend. Anyways, and then the other one is the one that's under construction. That's largely for sure under back in compliance. And so we are going to take a motion to rescind those EOs at this point in time. You can make that motion.
I make a motion, we rescind the enforcement orders on 33 and 43 Oceanside.
So by rescinding those, do we have a timetable from them on when we're going to see some activity or filings or anything?
I think, no, we don't, but right now we have orders that don't condition a wall there, so, which is pretty much the direction we're going in.
Okay.
We've seen a possible plan, and actually this week, Frank, I think we were gonna maybe have a call with the new attorney for the applicant and just discuss some of the challenges with the site, just to make sure that, when they come back, that they hopefully, we're not wasting people's time, I guess, basically.
Okay. All right. Well, so we just need that vote on the rescinding those and
Yes,
take it from there. Okay.
somebody needs to second it.
So that was a motion from Penny.
Second from Jen.
Okay, all in favor, Andy,
Yes.
Brendan,
Brendan
oh, he's
left.
gone, yeah, and Frank, yes, sorry, thank you. At least I have my headset on.
Okay, so
Um,
now we're gonna talk about a couple of new ones, Frank.
Yeah.
208 CJC Highway and 5 Cushing Landing.
Mhm. So do you want me to run from there, or do you want to?
Sure, sounds good.
Okay, so at 5 Cushing Landing, if you recall, we conditioned a boathouse with.
No, actually there's a.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's
Tear me
the
down, yeah.
208
208 is the boathouse.
Chief Justice Cushing is the boathouse. So we conditioned a boathouse with some view easements, and they had a plan with erosion control fairly close to the proposed structure. Instead of doing that, the erosion control got placed at the outer part of the property line, and then all the trees in that area, pretty much all the trees in that area were totally cut and removed. And then some additional trees were cut outside of that, which are on 5 Cushing Landing. So we don't have an idea of the whole number of trees, but it's a very, very egregious clearing and change of a project. And really disappointing after we spent some time on this project, showing them what we wanted to do. So Amy's already issued a
Correspondence for cease and desist on both properties with, I think we distributed pending enforcement orders, just to give direction for assessment and restoration plan.
right. So we're issuing the enforcement order. We want to look at fines for this activity and get a full assessment of just how much damage was done. And Amy's made arrangements to get, is it Bob Gray?
Yes.
To visit the site on Friday. We got to figure out just how much was cut within any of the resource areas, buffer. And then determine where we want to go from there. Right now, either applicant can proceed. They both have cease and desist on their projects. Penny?
Yeah, did you look at the email? Probably not. You haven't seen, but I'm concerned about the gentleman doing the new house on 5. He
What a-
seemed to feel as though he was hoodwinked by the other guy, and he had no idea he was taking those trees down on his property.
I think right now, Penny,
Yeah,
that's really irrelevant to our, I think that that's something that they may have to work out between themselves. There's trees down on both properties. For us to get into the weeds as to who said who could do what, in my personal opinion, is that we don't need to go there.
okay.
We're just gonna issue these. We're gonna make an assessment of the property. We're gonna figure out how much damage was done,
Lot.
and then we're going to to move on the direction, and if it involves town council, we'll do that as well. We'll talk to the town administrator, and he's on board with us doing what we feel is appropriate action.
Okay,
All right,
sounds good.
so
do you guys, can you make motions to issue these enforcement orders that I sent out in draft?
Wait a second, 5, okay, in draft.
Or we could wait on them, but no, I think
No,
you're
let's do-
better
let's do
off revising the enforcement orders as things change. But I mean, so really, like the steps are, I mean, we're gonna get eyes on it with our wetland consultant on Friday. And also I've received notification from Mr. Pacheco that he hopes to have Morse out there hopefully by then. I'm not sure if that'll happen or not, to stake the boathouse location and the accurate limit of work. And then, you know, the same thing should happen from from Mr. Keaveney on his property, would be to identify, you know, we'll take a look at it, but it's really up to them to show us, you know, where their limit of works are and approved limits and, you know, buffers, that type of thing. And then we can take it from there. And I see that Mr. Keaveney has his hand up.
yeah, but I don't know that we really need to get into discussing this tonight, Amy, or debating it. I think until we get.
We don't
the
have
info-
to, yep.
We get the information from our consultant, we can visit the site. But as far as I can see, there's a violation at both properties.
Right.
Okay. So
So
I'm a little confused on the motion, Amy, you want made. I make a motion to issue an enforcement order for
With
tree
cease.
cutting for 208 CJC and 5 Cushing Landing.
That'll work.
Okay, somebody
so
second
that's a
that.
motion. Do we have a second?
Second, Andy.
Thank you, Andy. All in favor? Jen,
Jen has herself muted.
Sorry, yes.
and Frank, yes. Okay,
So we're all set with that. Can I just ask a real quick question going back to 33 Oceanside?
sure.
I know we're waiting for another NOI to come in, but am I wrong in, I thought DEP told them to do the plantings.
Well, so you're not incorrect in that there are superseding orders
Yeah,
not approving a wall
yeah.
on that and with plantings. So, yes.
So why could we still not put an enforcement order to get the plantings in? I mean, he hasn't done what he's supposed, I don't know. All right. I'm exasperated there.
Well, his orders are still valid and
Okay,
accurate.
Yeah.
He's within his 3-year window, but I don't think that there was necessarily a time frame on that.
okay.
Yeah.
All right, so we're waiting for them and then we can make a decision on the new NOI, right?
Right, and I can get or try to get some direction from DEP on where they stand on the SOOC.
Okay. Well, I'm just so frustrated because this seems to be going on for years and years. But, okay, moving on. Minutes, I make a motion, we accept the minutes of March 21st as written.
Second,
It's a second from Jen. All in favor, Andy
Yes.
and Frank, yes.
And we have an order of condition. I thought we should have had two, but I guess not. 159 Ria Glades Road as written. Those orders of condition.
Second,
All in favor, Andy?
Yes.
Mike, yes. Great.
Yeah, and Penny, I think that the other orders you might be thinking about, we voted to close and issue at the last
Yes.
hearing.
Right. What happened?
So meaning that, well, they're probably still in queue to actually go out the door, but you don't need to make another motion to actually issue those because you already did.
Oh, okay. That's all. I just, thank you.
Mhm.
That's all I
I think we're at the end, folks.
Okay, so just the Scituate Troop 7, was it Matt done? Right, Jen? Which I'm mixing them up. Yeah, just
yes.
I think he's completed his project there at the Driftway Park. I haven't had a chance to get out and see it, but sounds like he's pretty well moved along on that one. I did get out there the weekend before, this past weekend, and met with two other scouts. One of them's very anxious to do a project. He's going to be aging out as Matt is, and we're looking for him to do a lot of the signage work and things like that. And then there's another one that could follow up with more help on combination of wetlands crossings and maybe some more signage or whatever, moving a few things around. So Jen is chatting with them a little bit, and we'll try to pull together kind of a description for the two of them, and hopefully they get approval from their troop or scout association to do those projects so we can get them moved along.
Yeah, the thing I would add on that is we've resurrected the list of projects that we had in 2020. So it was a good opportunity for that. So I took a pass at updating it. I actually just shot it over to Andy because I figure he might like pivot tables as much as I do. He does not, he's shaking his head. But the idea being, hopefully we can get that in a little bit of a state so that that can just be shared with the Boy Scouts and they can see all these projects that we've identified. And also to other people who have projects that they think we should be taking on, they can see all the other things that we have ahead of us.
Have ahead of them.
Thanks for pulling that back together. It's kind of too bad, you know, these guys have a certain age time to work on this, and some of them have got pushed around a little bit, and you know, I'm sad for a lot of different people got affected by COVID, but for these guys, between school work and getting ready for college applications and all that, these are a big deal. And there's some really willing young people that want to do some of this. So we're hoping that this will ramp back up.
Absolutely.
Awesome. And it was just encouraging to see so many of them out there on Sunday, all working pretty hard. So we're fortunate that they want to do some of our projects.
Okay.
Okay. Well, it's almost 9 o'clock. What do you think?
We can go home now. Next meeting's at 6 o'clock, people. Oh, and town meetings next week, if you want to come and have fun.
Yeah, and I also just one little update on MIPA review. So for 8 Newell Street.
Oh, yeah.
You might recall that there was an appeal on that and to DEP. And so that the first place they sent that was to the folks at MIPA for an ENF. And the site walk with the agencies is set for Thursday, late morning. It's not really like one of those meetings where I don't know, like if you want to come, I would say you can come, but for sure, but it's not like a real participation type meeting. It's gonna mostly for them to observe and ask questions.
Who's gonna answer their questions?
Well, I guess Mr. Nguyen will be there and I'll be there and
All right.
CZM will be there. I mean,
Okay,
DEP will be there. There's gonna be like 8 agencies. There's a wildlife and I mean, it's the MIPA people
Okay,
for whenever you propose to alter a resource area, which is what they're proposing to do.
okay, no, that's good. I just wanted to make sure that, yeah. Sounds good.
Amy,
Mhm.
just to be clear on the Chief Justice Cushing and whatever, are you gonna convey that information to the 2 folks tomorrow, or how does that get? conveyed?
Well, we'll send out the enforcement orders tomorrow, and I have been in touch with both of them via email, and they're actually both, I don't know if they're on the call, but Mr. Keaveney has his hand up and I see a Sean P. So I'm thinking that they're following along with what's going on. I'm sure they're gonna have questions. I mean, I think still to be addressed is penalties and also at which point, when, and, does cease and desist, how long does it hold for, especially on the 5 Cushing, because they are in, they have the foundation poured and they were about to frame that up. And then on 208, that, I think there's a temporary building, certificate of occupancy that's outstanding. So, I mean, there's things that to be talked about.
Yeah, I just don't see the point in discussing this with the commission tonight. I think you can relay that information, and then we're gonna follow up during the week with hearing back from Bob Gray and their engineers and
Yeah, first thing,
what was done there.
assessment. I mean, I think, we really just need to get feet on the ground and, we know what it looked like before. I've done some drive-bys and so have you, Frank. But, maybe, I don't know. We'll see.
Okay.
Well, I drove out there and I was very upset when I saw what had happened.
Okay, well, nobody's happy with this. I just want to make sure that the communications right now is between you and them. We don't need to debate this as a commission at this point until we have the information. Okay,
Okay, I make a motion to adjourn then.
take that. How about a second?
Second.
That was Jen. All in favor, Andy
Yes.
and Frank, yes. Thank you
Good
very
night.
much. Have a good night.
Everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.